Here. All right, we're recording. We are live to tape. Live to tape.
Live to tape.
How's it going, man?
Not bad. Not bad. Trying to figure out what you're watching. Don't tell me. Obviously, that guy's giving it away.
Yeah. It's the beginning of this movie.
Huh.
So,
Is it the newest? Is it the newest Mission Impossible?
No, not Mission Impossible.
Huh. It's got the guy from New Girls in it?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, and this part, what's happening right now, should sort of give it away. Right now, they're pulling something out of the fluids.
I kind of don't remember what he's done besides Mission Impossible the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's not a remake.
Oh, is this The Mummy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot they did that.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No.
It's all right. It's all right. I've seen better Tom Cruise movies. I watched Vanilla Sky recently again. First time I've seen that in years.
How do you feel about it?
It definitely it's not as, at the time it was one of the trippiest movies I've ever seen. So it's got a higher bar for what that's all about these days. But it felt good. It's a good movie.
I'll never forget in Joffer's class, was that directing too?
Yeah.
Who is that fucking kid? Chris something? Just that fucking kid.
Chris.
So like
Chris Oble?
Chris Oble, yeah. I remember he said something like about how bad Vanilla Sky was. And at that point I really liked it. I hadn't really heard many bad things about it. And he said something that he would say. It's just some fucking pompous bullshit.
Yeah.
And then Joffer like agreed though. He's like, "Oh yeah, that movie's unwatchable." I remember them. They agreed that Vanilla Sky was a terrible movie, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
What? It's a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. But I don't think I've watched it in a long time.
Yeah, I'm working on downloading the original short film that it was based on, Opera Los Ojos, right now, which I didn't realize also has Penelope Cruz in it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really ever seen that. Maybe I saw it once a long time ago, but I don't really remember it.
I don't think I've seen it, but I knew she was in it, but that's all I knew about it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, things are going all right. Yeah, I was just on the Uncle Bruce FaceTime me like at just a little bit before 4, and he was like, he was in sort of like a mood, and Aunt Margaret was like, "Don't mind him. He's in a bah humbug mode right now." I'm like, "What's going on? What's going on, Uncle Bruce?" And of course, it's like the main thing that's concerning him is the idea of mandatory vaccinations, forced vaccinations, and how, by and large, that's becoming more of a not only an acceptable thing, but a necessary thing in people's minds. Yeah. And how I think that was really getting on his case about that. And so we chatted a little bit about all the things, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that stuff today. Yeah, it's just it's a confusing time, man. It's a confusing time.
It really is. Yeah, when you texted me that the other day, like we've been kind of just building to that, and I was talking to somebody else recently too, where it used to be just, we didn't ever really know what we were talking about, but at least we felt like we knew what side was what side, and we know, which sources we preferred to listen to because we felt like they were coming from a certain camp. And now it's just like, we don't know who's in whose camp, who wants what, like why they want it, if they have a reason, if they have an intention, if they're working with these people, or if they even know about those people, or if that's all a joke and a lie and this is the real thing. Like, I'm with you, man. I just don't. Everything is so like, I don't know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who's trying to make the world a better place or a worse place, who's actually taking advantage of the situation, and who's genuinely trying to solve the problem. It's just like,
cannot tell. It is so confusing. I actually had to look up the definition of the word confusing when I was having a voice.
That's how confused you are?
That's how confused I am. I was talking, I had a Zoom meeting with the Mountain of Love team the other day, and I was just like, Wait a minute. Wait, I'm confused. Wait, am I confused? Wait, what's the definition of confused?
Uh,
Oh yeah. Definitely confused.
like, yeah, I don't know. Every day it's something else, and then more conspiracies, and like Russian TV apparently just was putting out something saying blaming specifically Bill Gates for the COVID.
Yep.
Like Russian official TV, it's just like what? Like what? I am so it's so deep and so convoluted. I don't want to even say anything. I don't even have an opinion. I
Yeah.
can't have an opinion.
Can't have an opinion.
I don't know what I think.
It's that's like, been the ongoing thing with these Mountain of Love discussions talking about the pandemic. Excuse me, with Uncle Bruce and everything, because to comment on to say certain things like, we can't trust the numbers, or even to suggest that Dr. Fauci is actually like a deep state operative who worked for the Clintons and has done all these gain of function studies on viruses for the whole time, to even suggest that he's a bad guy. It's like, oh, well, then maybe Trump was right. That was like what I said to Uncle Bruce. I'm like, hey, Uncle Bruce, maybe Trump was right. And he's like, no. It's like, he can't be. It's impossible. It's like, and I'm not saying he is, but it's like, that's how confusing it is, because who is the good guy, who is the bad guy. It's to even suggest some of the things like Uncle Bruce has been talking about with the pandemic. I wanted to joke with him. I wanted to. It wasn't the right time just now, but to be like, hey, Uncle Bruce, did you see what the latest post on like whitehouse.gov is? Donald Trump put out like a little article promoting you, talking about how great your work is. There's this great doctor I know. His name is Dr. Bruce Lipton. He's always on the right side of science. I really like this guy. Tremendous guy. Great work. Everyone should listen to Dr. Bruce. Just how cool would that? It's like, Uncle Bruce, did you see that Trump endorsed you? Like, I want to say that just to kind of throw it in there, just like, hey, certain things that you might say are going to be received by that particular political side of things. Those videos of people out there protesting in the street saying we want to open the economy back up and the whole thing's a hoax and nurses are fake, all fake actors and everything. Have you seen that video?
I mean, I've heard that accusation that they're fake people posing as nurses, but I don't know anything.
Yeah, so it's like, what the fuck? It's one of those things where there's such a feedback between things that seem to be so clearly opposites, which now it's not so clear.
Yeah, nothing is clear. It's all murky. Like I said, I just can't have an opinion about anything. I just don't know. It's just, everything is so saturated. And there's just so much information, and there's so much stuff constantly, and everyone's saying this and everybody's saying that, but literally it's like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody actually knows what's going on, but a lot of people are talking like they do. And I feel like that's why there's part of the reason why there's such a disconnect, because there's no one has a source. It's just like everything got kind of behind the scenes, got switched around, if it would ever was the way that we thought it was. So now, I don't know, there's just no one really has a connection to anything except for how they feel or a couple things that they saw that sit with them. And it's just such a passionate time. There's so much going on that you feel like you need to have an opinion about it. You feel like you need to stand on one side or the other, because it's so intense and such a vulnerable moment. And I think people are kind of almost aggressively forming stances because they feel like they need to at this point, but no one has enough information. So like, I've been on these video chats with my high school buddies the last 2 nights, like, 10 or 11 guys 2 nights ago, and then 6 or 7 different guys yesterday. And a lot of them were very, very, a lot of them are smarter than I am. And I was just kind of trying to listen to everyone's perspective, and everyone's perspective is just all over the place, and nobody really knows. Like, one of them was a doctor I was talking to last night, and he's like, don't listen to that, don't listen to that, this is how it is over here, blah, blah, blah. And then the night before, we got a bunch of more opinionated people who are like, don't listen to the left-wing media, blah, 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 this is a bunch of joke. And then he's like, once summer hits, nobody's going to be paying attention to social distancing. Everyone's just going to go to shit, and they're going to want to go out and party. And so everyone's got such a different opinion. And I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah. And this is a very different time for having even an opinion that's contrary to what the status quo is, like namely to have a Thor, relax, buddy. Hey, I'm right here, buddy. I'm right here. Here, okay. It's okay.
Thor's got an opinion. He wants everyone to hear it.
But to have a conspiracy theory mindset in this particular circumstance is not like it was before pandemic, where you could be that, life goes on. You could be that guy that's like, yeah, the 5G. Oh yeah. Oh, the deep state, or the reptilians. You can have that belief now, but now in terms of pandemic, to even suggest that Dr. Fauci is working with Bill Gates on a depopulation plan, it's like, that draws such a line in the sand now, where you're not just that guy with some, out there opinion. Now you're actively endangering, like that idea is like a danger to a lot of people.
Right.
Which is why I'm reluctant to have an opinion publicly about what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And things are so sensitive, and especially about like Fauci. He's clearly like the most important person in America for the last couple of weeks, or at least, a focal point.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, what your opinion is on him kind of defines you if you have one. And yeah, he's seen as like the blessing, and like the man who can, do no wrong, essentially.
Yeah, the guy with a head on his shoulders, especially standing next to Donald Trump. It's like, oh, clearly Donald Trump wants us to inject Clorox, and then Fauci's the one who's saying that this is real. So Fauci's clearly the good guy in the scenario. But is he? We don't know. And then on top of all this, dude, to make it even more confusing, is the Pentagon releases the fact, yes, UFOs are real. The footage that was leaked by Tom DeLonge in 2017, of all people, like, it was leaked. That wasn't even the real disclosure. That was like what they were trying to do, the disclosure, and it didn't work out. And they're like, all right, yes, well, in fact, it is real. Those were actually UFOs. And
Blink-182 was right all along, guys.
It's of all things.
All the small things, man.
All the small things. Oh my God. Yeah. So, hey, maybe David Wilcock. I had this one. My dad was here last night. I was having this like long conversation about everything, and just starting to think, like, I don't know. Like, we were drinking tequila, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe David Wilcock was right the whole time. Maybe Trump is with the alliance. Maybe I'll vote for Trump. I don't know. Like, not that I would, but it was like, that's how I was in like a craze moment. And he's like, I don't know. Just seeing what's going on right now, and how in flux. And it's like, hey, you know what? That's good. The best piece of knowledge is that we know very little anyway. So it could be easy to forget that, especially in times like this, right?
Definitely. Yeah, but the alien thing is just such a, like, why now? Like, and then you can, that alone is such a massive thing that they've acknowledged that, and then they have it on the governmental website. They release these videos. Yeah, they were out before, but now they're acknowledging them, that they're 100% real, and everything that everybody said about them was true, even though there's clearly a billion people out there that want to debunk it just because that's what they love doing. They love debunking, even though it's literally the
government, the Pentagon.
The government. So if you're debunking the video, you're literally saying the government's lying either way. So either these videos are legit videos and they're not really explainable, at least they won't explain it to us, or they released fake videos and they're lying to us. So either way, there's something happening.
Yeah.
I don't understand people's points where like, no, these videos are probably just like an airplane, or probably like a balloon, like literally all the same arguments that they for 50, 60, 70 years. And it's like, all right, well, what's your point? Like, you're either saying that the Department of Defense is releasing videos and then lying to you about the videos, or they're actually releasing videos about stuff that they don't know about. Like either way, it's a massive thing.
Yeah.
But it's just so casual in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
It's like,
and that's another thing. I'm awaiting David Wilcock's next live update, being like, yep, see, just like I've been saying, the disclosure is happening. And it's like, hey, I guess it kind of is. And it's just interesting. It kind of goes by under the radar because other people have more pressing concerns on their mind than UFOs. But is that not the best way to release information so that it doesn't cause a panic? Like, was that not Majestic 12's fucking MO since the beginning, to release the information in a way that doesn't freak people out like the War of the Worlds experiment did?
right. This would be the perfect time.
Yeah, and that the pilot. Did you ever listen to that Joe Rogan podcast with the pilot that was in that airplane?
I listened to most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, for anybody that's doubtful of the legitimacy of that particular sighting, should listen to that podcast, because even people that I was talking with Jeremy Aquilino, and we were talking about this UFO thing, and just listening to the voice of that guy on the tape, it sounds like he's some broy, like, oh, dude, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the fuck is that? And like, you think he's just like some broy, like Jersey Shore kind of guy, but no, he's a decorated fucking sharpshooter Air Force pilot with white hair. This is not some broy dude.
Right. Well, and then there are a lot of people are saying, like, just because these are, of course, just Reddit comments on the thread. So I saw dozens and dozens of comments about, like, just because they fly an airplane doesn't make them like a more qualified observer than you. They're essentially the same observational powers than anybody walking on the street. And it's like, they've been up in the air for thousands of hours. Even if they're not the most observant person, they know what a plane looks like from when they're flying. How many times have they seen another airplane? Like, they know enough that they've seen it thousands of hours. Walking down the street, if you see a car, you see a car, you see a car, and then you see something that's behaving like a car, but it doesn't look like a car. You know what a car looks like, and you know what how it behaves. In the same way that this guy is a trained professional, knows what another airplane or a balloon looks like from being 500 feet, 1,000 feet away from it, and how things behave.
Yeah.
And it was caught on a radar, and there were 3 or 4 other people who verified it.
Yeah.
It's like, and then
it was even just that one object. There were a whole bunch of them that you just
didn't
put in there. And you know what? That argument's silly, because I would argue the airplane, those pilots are much more qualified observers, because if you're going like 600 miles an hour in an airplane, having to make decisions that like 100 steps ahead, to be able to, you have to be able to see things well, make turns well before you want to make them. I think they're much more qualified observers than the average people on the streets, for sure.
At least the argument is that they're more, they're at least a little bit more qualified than you or I.
Yeah.
These people saying like, oh, they're just normal people in airplanes. It's like, no, they're not.
They're not. You don't just, if that was the case, then anybody could just go, why doesn't everybody have a fighter pilot license?
Yeah, right, exactly.
They don't just let anybody fly like multi-million-dollar jets for the government.
But of course, people are gonna, fight for their.
Oh yeah, and even on another side, they're saying the skeptics will say, well, they're just releasing this information to distract us from the coronavirus. Like, yeah, but how is that working out? No one even cares.
Yeah, right.
How is that a distraction? Like, what? How? Who's thinking like, well, we don't want people to know the truth about the coronavirus is freaking people out, so let's release the UFO information to distract them from the coronavirus. Like,
yeah, like we'll just forget about the coronavirus.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Of course, that people will, they'll make the arguments that they can make, and that's pretty much it. But they don't know. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab a drink here.
Cool. Sorry, Abigail was crying to get upstairs.
Oh, Abigail. Yeah, how's everybody in the family doing?
Fine, good. Yeah. It was a beautiful day here, which was nice. We've had a couple of non-great days this last week, so that kind of perpetuated the boredom and claustrophobia and
Mm.
insanity that people are feeling being all cooped up. So it was really nice to have a beautiful 60-something degree day today. So we're doing all right, no complaints. I told you my brother and his wife have recovered from having COVID, and they're both back at work now. And yeah, I don't know what's
Well, that's
going on.
good.
You guys doing okay? Your dad was up there just for a day?
Yeah, I didn't realize he was because he had a doctor's appointment with this woman Patricia, who is a friend of Uncle Bruce's. She's a pain management medical doctor, but also is very like into the energy healing and the beliefs and all that stuff. So a much more holistic pain management doctor than he's ever had. He's been trying to meet with her for months, and it was the first time. And he just called me and was like, "Hey, I'm in LA. I've just finished the doctor's appointment." I'm like, "Oh yeah, come by." He's doing good. He did some acupuncture this morning because he went back and did a second appointment. So he did acupuncture and did a few other. Um, he was going to be going in to get like an IV of nutrients and vitamins and other stuff with meditation. But when he parked his truck over in this lot down the street by Hollywood Boulevard. And he went down there and he had a flat tire. So he wasn't sure if like somebody let the air out of his tire, or he thinks maybe that he already had an issue with his tire when he drove up here. So he ended up missing that part. But
Okay, bummer.
but he was saying that even though the stuff that he did yesterday with her really helped a lot. It put these little like, I guess you have pressure points or energy points on your hands that correlate to different parts of your body. So she goes through with a little like a metal pin thing, and if you feel anything, that's where they put these little like band-aids with some sort of gel thing that goes into your skin. I'm not sure, but he said as soon as she put those on, he immediately felt better with his back.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's doing good. He's still on his crusade to single out and defriend all of the crazy right-wing Trump people that he's been associated with on Facebook. Yeah,
Yeah, that'll be a never-ending battle, I'm sure.
yeah, I know. But yeah, last night it was after drinking tequila, just really starting just getting into the conspiracy stuff and just going through a mode. It was like, gotta remember, hey, everything you think might be wrong. Maybe just take a step back and try to look at the big picture. Recognize that maybe just got to be as open and receptive as possible, as much as possible in these times. Like you were saying, like people we were compelled to have an opinion, and we have our own beliefs and biases that will formulate that opinion. But last night was definitely a moment where I started to really think, okay, let's deconstruct. Okay, built this whole nice belief system here. Let's deconstruct it again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to try to be for at least the foreseeable future, especially just because of, I don't know, yeah, I'm just kind of lost and kind of feel like I'm floating. I used to be connected to something, like tethered to something with ideas and like a core, but now it just feels like I'm floating aimlessly in a fucking, battlefield, like an asteroid field. Like I don't know. All I'm trying to do is avoid, running into a mountain or a massive meteor. That's all I'm trying to do right now. I can't do anything else. Even having like constructive conversations or like conversations that we would typically have about this kind of stuff, I can't even like get into it. So every day is just kind of like a new day and a new movie, and we're like, all right, well, what's the download for today? Where the fuck are we at? What's the crazy thing that's happening now? Like North Korea, is their leader dead? We don't know. Are there aliens? Is there these killer wasps coming into North America? Like, that's literally a thing I read today. And yeah, it's just, speaking of David Wilcock though,
Yeah.
he, his last live stream was about like the data dump.
Yes, the WikiLeaks and all that.
And then he hasn't responded that was not a data dump from that day. it was a data dump from earlier, either
Yeah.
last year or something like that. But he was making it seem like that had just happened that day.
Right. He's like, I will read it live on the air. I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to get right to these data dumps as we're reading
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
but they've been out. But they've already been out. So he either just came across something or he didn't really fact check. But then he's been silent like since then. So I don't know how he's going to backpedal on that, because that was like a big like thing to him. Like, oh, it's, this is one of the steps in the process of things happening.
Great awakening.
Yeah, and then, I mean, have there been any arrests? Is he going to try to claim that Kim Jong-un was part of the military operation and the release of these UFO videos? He'll probably try to,
Oh yeah, that's all part of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm trying to almost stay out of it, but it is addicting though. Every day it's like a new chapter, so you want to look at what's happening to try to be up to date about it, because who knows how quickly things if you're out of the loop for 2 days, you don't know what you're like. There might be martial law in that amount of time. Like you might go down the street and
you just get arrested.
There's a tank there, or there's other things like hovering in the air. Like literally, you could miss so much in a day now. So just for the sake of like survival, you have to kind of stay apprised. But it is kind of like, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go out and hang out in the yard with my dogs and go for a run and watch a movie, and then I don't know, check to see if the world's still there, and then if it is, then it's like, all right, there's not much more you could do at this point, because like religiously following something or having news on 24/7 is just not going to do anything positive for you.
There needs to be some sort of, we've talked about this before, but I really think like, especially now with how we're both feeling and thinking about this, there's more of a need now than more than ever to have some sort of like public point that needs to be made that addresses, that basically proves things one way or the other. To live in this state of confusion and chaos for so long and just really hoping and like creating a belief system, adhering to a belief system that somehow there's a fight going on between the good guys and the bad guys, and it's all part of the plan. And like, yeah, little things like Epstein, the whole Epstein thing, the Weinstein thing, the UFO thing, the arrests that have happened. There definitely have been arrests in the last 4 years. I don't like mass arrests, not on the scale of like what people are saying with the high profile mass arrests.
Right, yeah.
But there are human trafficking. There's stuff going on in relation to that. But those are not. This is me battling with having patience too, because I just feel like that's not enough. there needs to be some, like what David is suggesting. The power goes out for 3 days, and when the power comes back on, everyone's got they release the documentaries that they've been planning, and they start making announcements. Like there needs to be some sort of moment like that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'd like to think that there will be, but like as things have always gone,
yeah, probably
in this realm and just in life, it's like everything always takes longer than you hope it would, or that any prediction, anything, it's like, oh shit, that took. I had a friend of mine who was driving down from Ohio yesterday to pick up some stuff from her apartment here, and then drive back because they can't move for another month. And she was like, oh yeah, that took like a couple hours longer than we thought it was going to. And it's like, that's always the case. Like moving, anytime you move, it's like, oh shit, that took 9 hours instead of 3. Or rendering or editing or working on something or just waiting for something to happen. It's like it always takes longer than you think it will, especially, whenever they make these predictions like David or any of these people on the insiders. Anytime they make a prediction at this point, you're just like, why? Why are you even doing that? Now, I know it's like to fulfill the ego, and it's really awesome and sexy to have like a date, like, look at me, I said March 25th, and what happened? Something happened on March 25th. It just feels like you feel really special.
Right.
But anytime a date has been put out there, literally nothing's happened.
Yeah, I know. Every time.
If it ever happens, it happens way, way, way later, So, yeah, it would be nice and it feels like we've been doing this forever, but I only moved home a month ago, and this has only been really happening for 6 weeks or something like that, maybe a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
But that's not really that long. People, it feels just because a lot of people are, all the protests and people are kind of at their wits' end, and they're kind of just at the point where it needs to be make or break. I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to be make or break right now. We might still have to wait 2 or 3 or 4 or however many more months, especially if there's another wave that comes back and we have to shut down again, which is probably likely because humans are, just look at the protests and the people in Michigan courthouses with assault rifles. It's like, it's probably going to keep going, and it's going to be longer. I want this to happen. I want these arrests, and I want the power outages, and I want the new financial system. But also with the things the way that they are now, everything happens in a minute. Everything's been happening also, to contradict everything I just said, everything has been happening way quicker than it normally has.
Yeah.
In the last 2 weeks or a month, everything, all these things have already happened. Whoa, what the fuck? That's already, some countries are already, Canada just banned all assault weapons or something like that, or they're in the process of doing that. It's a massive thing happening. And then Italy, I saw, was looking into other countries too, having a national income, just for anybody, you're paid by the state, just thinking about new ways of governing and being efficient human societies. All that's already happening so quickly, whereas before it's oh yeah, well, they're working on that. They've been working on a bill, and they've been in talks about this and that, and fossil fuels, and coal is this is basically killing coal, and pointing more to different ways of getting energy, cleaner energy and stuff like that. All that stuff is just kind of being pushed through now because these other bullshit things can't stand alone, and fuel is down under $1 in some places, which is insane. So these things are happening very quickly. The oil industry might just fucking collapse during this whole thing. But then on the other side, things still might take longer than you hope, so I don't
get bailed out.
Yeah, they'll get bailed out for a day, and then they'll be like, oh, we lost $12 billion in a day. Sorry, can we have more? It's
do it again. Sure.
Do you ever watch Parks and Rec?
No, I haven't. I've seen it before,
Okay.
but not
There's a couple of characters. Henry Winkler's their dad. They're the 2 most outrageous characters probably in there. They're just they're in, every 10th episode or whatever. And the girl's name is Mona Lisa, and she's just outrageous and a horrible, shitty kid. And she's in her 20s or 30s. And it just reminds me of the oil industry, of these big businesses. Because anytime she'll fuck up and do something, and then she'll just go to her dad, she'll just go, money, please. Money, please. And she'll even do that to people who aren't her dad, and they're like, I'm not your parent. He's just it's just better if you just give her money. She'll just go away, just give her money, and she'll just go away. And that's how these big businesses are. It's just they keep fucking up and keep coming back, and then the government's just it's just easier if you just give them money, and then they'll go away. But then the next day they're back, money, please.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know, man. So it could happen tomorrow, and it could happen in a year, or could happen right now. Fuck if I know.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. It's got to remember not to hold our breath in anticipation for some event to come in the future, because non-linearly speaking, holographically speaking, it's happening right now. And even look at it deeper on that hologram, that's where the real optimism, I think, comes from. It's when you understand the true nature of the hologram being a love generator, basically, that produces light. There is a really positive outcome for this whole thing. And this is all absolutely part of that plan. If there's, of course, we're biased to Uncle Bruce and his original prediction of the concept that if you look at the world, you get newspaper, but there's good news and bad news. Which news do you want which news do you want first? All right, we'll start with the bad news. Bad news is that civilization as we know it is coming to an end. Whew, okay, pretty bad news, right? Well, what's the good news? Civilization as we know it is coming to an end. It's the good news and the bad news are the same thing. And so that prediction that's like, yeah, it's like everything that's happening right now is exactly the way it should be happening. And it's sort of like, I can only imagine birthing pains can be. There's a struggle. There can be a struggle. Of course, there are the stories of people that have euphoric birth experiences where it's like an ecstasy type of a thing. But then again, even in the pain and the discomfort of that experience, uh, you get a baby at the end. So there's a positive side to that. And if there's any way that we could hone into that original idea of that, it's not the end of the world. In fact, this is exactly what the world needs, the world at large in terms of humanity and consciousness and perception. This is what we need in order to break free of a lot of the things that have been limiting us for so long. Like for years it was, we're waiting, like we were saying before, like, oh, well, policy wise, oh, well, we'll get to that. Okay, that we'll have some debates, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about that. But this situation is forcing us. But now it's not, now there's more of a need rather than like a want,
Right.
to want to change things. So that in a sense is very positive. The things I think are the most concerning, regardless of pointing fingers is a dangerous game. Drawing those lines in the sand, hard lines of there are the good guys and the bad guys. That's a dangerous thing to be doing. In fact, I think that's what part of the original Barnhart plan is, to incite a level of chaos that we start looking at each other as the enemy. Even the bad, these supposed bad, the Dick Cheneys of the world, the Donald Trumps of the world, even the Obamas of the world. Oh, we can blame these individuals, Bill Gates. We can be, yeah, sure. But then again, we are all frequencies in the electromagnetic. We are all part of the light. We are all part of the light. The moment that we exclude or remove a particular person or frequency of light, when we put it back in through the prism, we don't get white light anymore. We're no longer one. So we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful about how we approach this. And but with that being said, one of the most legitimate concerns of mine going forward, and I'm sure is with you too, I mean, it's just Mandala 101, is the idea of forced mandatory vaccinations. I think that's the number one thing that's big concern to me, in addition to the idea of the mass surveillance and the microchips, taking the Patriot Act to a whole nother level where people are going to want to have microchips to be able to determine, pandemic prevention measures and things like that. There's got to be a way to go back to that original idea about love and the hologram and the humanity and all that stuff, reducing the levels of fear. Because just seeing all of our friends, like everybody, like especially the people that are going really nuts right now, the ones that are really freaking out and getting paranoid about the situation, because we don't have the information, we don't know. And if you don't have that original base understanding, that fear can really run the show. And that's one of the biggest things that concerns me. And to wrap this point up, there's in the show Legion, which I love. I posted on Facebook. I don't know if you saw the link, but there was a clip from Legion that I put up about the placebo effect. Did you see that?
I haven't, no.
Really cool. But without giving too much away, the idea of fear is not as scary. Fear itself is one thing. It's the frightened. It's the people who are in groups enacting that fear. That make it's like the idea of it's not the idea of the thing, it's how the thing is being expressed is very concerning to me.
How you mean through fear? Like,
yeah, because let's say the facts come out. Let's say a fact comes out that the pandemic is winding down. The numbers are going down. It's safer. You don't have to wear masks as you can go back out in public. The fear, it's gone. The idea of the virus is going away. But the frightened people that are not just going to immediately take that fact, people are not just going to be like, oh, pandemic's over, let's go back to the way things were. People are still going to be frightened about that. And when people are in fear, when people are frightened in large groups, that's when we're more easily manipulated.
Yeah. That's very true.
So there's got to be a way to stand true with the reality of the situation, at the same time not antagonize it. I just don't know how that works at this point, especially for the uninitiated. For the uninitiated, how will they take this, Mr. Wayne? That's like, most people are uninitiated.
Yeah. And that's why they need those people that are living in fear and that will live in fear and have like a fear hangover from this, whichever way this kind of works out. But if it does work out the way that it seems like it might, where restrictions will be, up, and then we'll have to live like this for another year and a half until there's this miracle vaccine or whatever the hell happens at the end of it, people will definitely still be wandering around in way more fear. But I think there has to be more people that are leaders at that point that can be like, no, this is okay. Or at least just like to make people feel safe. I'm saying on like community level, as we always talk about the community, not the president, not your senator, not your governor, not whatever, just like literally people in your immediate sphere. There needs to be people in each group to be like, no, this is not, don't be scared. Don't wander around thinking there's a boogeyman around every corner or this and that, because like you said, that makes you more susceptible to manipulation. And, a feared public, it's like, oh, all right, we got to vote on this thing. Everyone's really scared. Of course, you're going to vote to have the Patriot Act Part 4, go through. And then, of course, we're going to support mandatory vaccinations. Of course, we're going to, support, V for Vendetta. That's how they got Chancellor Sutler in there, is because they created this fear. And then, of course, I know why you did it, he says. It's like you needed somebody to come in and be like your big babysitter. But that's the big fear right now, is that we'll be so scared after this is done, we'll just say yes to anything in order for us to feel safe again. So it's like, if the government comes in like, all right, you're scared, I know, but here, how about this? This will help. And then everyone will be like, yeah, just whatever you got to do, just do it. It's like agreeing to the guide, like the iTunes, updates. And so without reading them, it's like people are just going to blindly agree to stuff just to make sure that they feel safe. It's like, all right, well, I'll say yes because that means I get a blanket, but also with the blanket, there's smallpox in the blanket. It's like, you're not thinking about, you're not thinking straight at all, because you're operating from fear. And of course, this is like, that's why this time is so wild, is because it really is kind of, it's bringing up the situation which we've seen so many times of where a country is manipulated into fascism or a dictatorship. Like, this is perfectly bringing itself to that situation, putting everybody in this much fear, but it's also putting itself in the same situation where we have a massive opportunity to do changes for positivity, instead of reverting back to a savior or somebody just to help us and signing away our liberties and our freedoms because we're terrified. But I think if we have enough people on the smaller level in each of our bubbles to be like, nope, like, look into that more. Don't just be like, I'm going to go vote for it, or just do things rashly. You have to take a second to think about it. It's going to feel like everything's pressured and it needs to happen right now. It's going to feel like that for everything. And some things you will need to act quickly, but a lot of things are like, no, take a second. I know you're scared, but take a second. Think about it. Read the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
Take a breath and then make a decision. Don't come in there like, oh my God, please save us. Because that's how it happens.
Right. And then there's this really interesting synchronicity. Where is it? This very interesting synchronicity here.
Right, of course, yeah.
All right, kids, the pandemic is here. Everyone get your masks.
And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks.
Don't forget to wear your masks. La 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 la. Yeah. Everyone wear your masks. I remember at the warehouse did a little synchrocosm video, which I want to find. I remember when I uploaded it, I got in trouble because of the Olympics. I copped the Olympics 2012 footage and intercut like shit from Batman and the Halloween.
Yeah, I think I kind of remember that.
Because there was, at the same time, it was like the Batman, The Dark Knight Rises came out, which there was that clip, everyone wear your masks. And at the time, there were the billboards, the posters of Bane, Catwoman, and Batman. What are they all wearing? They're all wearing masks.
Yeah.
So I remember cutting it in, like thinking even at the time, there's some synchronicity with the masks and everyone wear your mask. But now literally everyone is like, hey, get your masks. Everyone wear your masks.
But it's the same thing as the end of V for Vendetta too.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone put your masks on and we'll go, because it's like a uniting thing too. That's why everything is both right now. And I've already seen advertisements for people to have masks that look like the Guy Fawkes masks. Like
wow,
modern day now, like you're wearing it because you need to or because it helps your safety, but you really could be joining a symbol of revolution. It's just, and that's why it's just like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I know. I'm glad we're on the same page with that, because it definitely is confusing. I'll be honest, with the whole Uncle Bruce thing, there have been some challenges along the road in terms of agreement with that. But even just after I talked with him on the phone just now, expressing into my confusion and really some of the programs coming out, it's like, so programs are like a tape. You press the button, it plays back the program. And some tapes are just like, are so deeply part of your routine to the point where, even Uncle Bruce was like, yeah, Trump's so bad, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, and that's why Joe Biden is going to fix everything. And he'll force mandatory vaccinations with him. It's like, hey, is because if people just got out there and voted, everything would be better. I'm like, Uncle Bruce, really? You really think we're going to vote for Joe Biden? Because if you're afraid of mass force mandatory vaccinations, you'd be damn well sure that's going to happen a lot faster with him.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, it's a kind like a moving target. Everything it is and it isn't at the same time.
and there's an argument for and against everything, like that has been Uncle Bruce's argument, at least like their generation, that's been their thing. It's like, well, if we got out and vote, you could really make a difference. That's kind of always been the underlying, hey, you talk this, you talk their points, political points, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, if you guys actually voted, then blah, 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 blah. But at this point, it's like Biden, it's like they went to a scrap or like a Democratic graveyard scrapyard and here's an old arm and here's an old shoe and here's a weird head and we'll just stick it all together and just shove him up there and hold him up with a stick, somebody behind him with a broom, just making sure he stays upright.
Is Jim Henson available?
Yeah, right. Seriously. No, they murdered him too.
Yeah, shit, we murdered him.
It's like, no, you can't. There's no argument for Joe Biden except for the Supreme Court, or I'm not even exactly sure, but Al, again, I was like, man, are you going to make me vote for Joe Biden? I didn't say it as condescending as that. And he was like, well, I was like, will you be super upset with me if I don't vote again? Because after the 2016 election, he was the most upset he's been with me since we've been, for 20 years. And he's like, if only for I think the Supreme Court seats or something, like the seats of something that the Democrats would be able to put in there over the Republicans. He's like, if only for that, you need to vote for Joe Biden. So I think he's almost conceded that Joe Biden is just an empty suit, but it's still better than the Republicans, essentially. So now it's like, now it's just straight up bottom line, blue versus red. Right. That's literally all you're voting for at this point, because they're both, the people who are representing each one are just fucking jokes on both sides, So it's just like, or at least just vote for the blue. Blue's better. Please just vote for the blue.
Please, we don't like Trump. Yeah, Trump sucks. Of course.
Red. Like literally, it's that low of a level. It's like, we just don't like red. We don't like the color red. Vote for blue. That's the only argument right now.
Yeah, and again, back to the forced mandatory vaccinations. It's like, yeah, sure, Supreme Court justices, yeah, in a normal world, that's why you'd want to vote for the lesser of two evils. But we're not in that world anymore.
Yeah.
We're not in that world anymore. There's other things that are moving along swiftly. And then again, it's like back to the idea that, well, does it really matter who the president is when you have the same apparatus running the show in the background? For the same argument that people think Fauci's some sort of deep state operative, then why, if he is, and there's this great war going on, why would Trump have put him in charge?
Right,
why would he be out there if he's some sort of deep state operative?
Yeah, a lot of these arguments break down after one or two questions like that, right? Like almost every perspective, it's like, well, what about this, and that? And then it's like, well, and then there's no argument because there's no, like we said, there's no foundation. There's no line straight to the source of where you got. It's like, no, it's all over. It's holographic, like you always say. It just looks like a mess. Like we don't have that, David. It's funny and like. It's just suiting that, our perception of David Wilcock has kind of gotten to where it's at now because he's usually him and Uncle Bruce are kind of like, our centers. And we're like, all right, well, what are they saying? At least we can find some sense from them. And now David Wilcock, we're just like, oh, okay, buddy, and it kind of represents perfectly what's happening right now because it's just like a puppet show. It's a mess. It's funny. And you're still holding on to the old ideas and having these new crazy ones, but it still makes no sense. Whereas the actual show makes no sense now too. So it's like, all right, well,
yeah, there
is no reliable source. Like even if somebody came up to me on the street and was like, hi, I'm in the deep state. I've been in it for 15 years. I'd be like, before I'd be like, oh my God, yes, please tell me everything. And now I'd be like,
believe who I saw on the street today.
Yeah. Like now I'd be like, I don't even care, dude. I trust you, but like, I can't trust you. No matter what story you tell me, you don't have all the information. And even if you do have the right story, you're like, I guarantee you, I signed all the papers, I wrote the plan, it's happening. Then it still wouldn't happen that way. Even if this guy was 100% legit, this guy or this girl or this being or this, cat, human or leopard person or fucking lizard, I don't even know. Like even if a reptilian came up to me and told me all this stuff, I'd be like, I can't even really believe you. That's how ridiculous it is right now.
Yeah.
But I do think I saw something you posted something on Uncle Bruce's Facebook or on yours saying, let's try to get Uncle Bruce back on Joe Rogan. I think this would be an absolutely perfect time for him to be on Joe Rogan.
Oh, for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And even listening to Rogan's podcast as of late, the last two I listened to Elon Musk's again with him the other day.
You saw what he just said the other day?
The what's that?
You saw what he just said the other day?
Elon Musk?
Yeah.
No. What do you say?
Calling what's happening because they're either threatening to shut down his plant in California or they already did, and he basically was saying this is fascist, having the shutdown. I don't know if he had any comments about it before, but then it seemed like all of a sudden he's like, oh, this fucking against our rights and this fascism making us stay home. So he kind of blurted out and looks like an idiot again. Well,
some people are saying, well, now he's like siding with Trump, which is again, like, that's what makes it so fucking crazy is that even to pose an idea that's contrary to what Fauci's saying really means in that it's like, oh, well then what, you like Trump, you support Trump, what do you want, inject Clorox in your dick now? Is that what you're gonna do now?
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. So like, yeah, but the last couple of podcasts, even Joe Rogan, the last one I listened to is also with Tim Pool.
I've heard of him. Is he another comedian?
No, he's a journalist. He used to work with Vice News.
Okay.
Joe did a podcast with Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, once, and a lot of people were upset with the fact that Joe didn't push back enough on a lot of things that he was saying. So they had him on again with like Twitter's like number one lawyer. So it was Jack Dorsey, the Twitter lawyer, and then this guy, Tim Pool, who was more instrumental in pushing back on the things that needed to be pushed back on. But anyway, pretty interesting podcast. They talked about aliens, and that was really hilarious. And it's, again, back to the whole insanity of what's going on right now. Joe Rogan has been very skeptical about, like, used to be way like us, very similar, was deep into the conspiracies and all that stuff, but then had a change of heart or a change of mind, and now he's much more skeptical about things. He's not like closed-minded, but he's not as gung-ho about it.
Right.
But then listening to this podcast with Tim Pool, and they're talking about aliens, and Tim Pool was like making up all these assumptions. Well, aliens wouldn't come here because it would take them that long to get here. And when they would get here, this is what they would do. And Joe's like, whoa. How do you know that? Where are you coming from with that? First of all, you're projecting like what we would do onto what the aliens would do. What kind of assumption is that? Why would we assume that the aliens are going to be doing anything? Well, they had they would need this kind of technology. It's like, you don't know what the fuck kind of technology aliens would have. And just to see Joe Rogan pushing back on that.
Yeah.
After being skeptical, it's like.
Yeah. During that fighter pilot, like UFO podcast, he was pretty much, he kind of said that like the route that he's been on. And I think he said now he believes in them more now than he ever has.
Yeah. Because of that and the Bob Lazar one.
Yeah. And yeah, Bob Lazar for sure was.
Yeah.
But it's like whenever people make that argument about aliens, it's like in the same way that you had to look up confused. It's like, have you looked up the word alien? You literally cannot relate to it. That's literally what alien means. It's something that you have no connection to. So there's no way you could predict why, like any motive or any type of behavior. It doesn't work within our confines. Right. It might, but you cannot assume that.
Yeah, you can't just write it off, case closed, because that's like.
Yeah.
And that was another funny thing with Case Closed in the Joe Rogan podcast he did with, I think it was like one of his MMA shows, and he had Brian Callen on.
Yeah.
Comedian guy.
Yeah, I like Brian Callen. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like him too. And they were talking about, and Eddie Bravo is on it, who's like flat or full on deep state conspiracy, Alex Jones, all that. So there was a point where they started talking about like the government elite, and Brian Callen was like, dude, this is why I don't believe in the global conspiracy of the elites controlling the world, because look, I know a billionaire, and she told me she tried to arrange a lunch meeting with 3 other billionaires, and it's virtually impossible to get them to all agree on anything. So just because of that, like, and Joe Rogan's like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that it's like, that's a pretty poor argument, dude, that there's no government global conspiracy because you talked to a billionaire that couldn't arrange a lunch with 2 other billionaires? Oh, case closed. Like, it's just so funny. Like, you can, like, we don't know what you can't like make people will rest on that laurel. They'll find a little fact that's confirmation bias for them, be like, well, yeah, see, there you go, end of story.
Yeah. By the way, now that I'm seeing this scene in the movie, I think I have seen the movie, that mummy movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I must have left it out of my memory bank.
Yeah. I like the main the actress that plays the mummy. She's really cool.
But yeah, I mean, nobody to assume that when you're not on the inside of anything, it's always fun to be like, especially in sports, it's like a lot of the NFL draft just happened, so a lot of my buddies are the made picks that they were not out at all. So this, everyone's going back and forth on their theories about why, Al thinks that they're probably not going to play this year, so that's why they picked differently. And, it's like you like to put yourself in the mindset of like a business owner who owns the Packers, and, they're trying to do this and that. It's like you can't really understand the inner workings of just a fucking sports organization, let alone an entire government, and let alone an aspect of a government that we know that there's 2 sides to the government. There's at least one side that we don't see. I think most people can agree that it's not transparent. So there's a lot going on that we don't know about. And to assume like that we could follow logic without being in the shit and being like, well, if it was this, then it would have happened this way, and it hasn't happened that way, therefore it cannot be true. It's like, how the fuck you don't know shit about
you don't have all the fucking pieces of the puzzle
shit about that. So it's almost the same as saying we know what aliens would do. It's the same as we know what Black Ops would do. It's like you have no grasp on how it functions, how deeply ingrained things are, and how things happen, and then how long it takes for it to bubble to the surface. It's like, oh, if they would have done that, they would have done it already by now. It's like, how do you know that they didn't fucking do it? Like, because it would have leaked to the press because I couldn't meet up with 3 billionaires and they can't keep a secret, they can't agree. It's like these arguments are so like they just irk me a lot. And, you know,
Oh, yeah.
I know I've spoken a lot of the time, you know, pretending like I know what I'm talking about and feeling strongly about it. But these arguments to me now are just like, you shut up. Like, I don't care if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, how smart you are. Like, if you're not in it, you don't fucking know. You just don't fucking know.
Yeah. Well, take it from me. I have an insider. I can't tell you his name. We're just going to call him Toby. Toby told me that this is all happening. That's all verified. All the things I've been saying are absolutely true. It's happening. I can't tell you his real name because his life would be threatened. Just take it from me. I got 3 other insiders: Toby, Thaddeus, and Jameson. That's what we're gonna call them. Just trust me. These guys are on the inside. They know the truth. I can't tell you who they really are, though.
I didn't want to say this, but since you brought it out before, you know, you brought it out to the public now. I have been in contact with Toby as well. We've been talking. We've had lots of late night conversations. I didn't want to be the first one to say that, but since you already kind of laid it out there, I want to tell the public now that I'm also independently verifying that Toby is a real insider and he can be trusted 100%. So that's
I don't know.
I don't know. It's off air. So
I'm actually going through the legal process of copywriting and trademarking Toby as my personal insider. So I can't really verify.
Alex, my lawyer is waving to me right now. He's telling me that we shouldn't talk about this anymore.
That's because I am the only one that can give you the insight from Toby.
Okay, my lawyer says that's not true, but I just want to stop there.
Well, then we're gonna have to sue you for copyright infringement now.
Also,
See,
I want to release information now too. Toby is actually my lawyer. So,
Toby's my lawyer.
Oh,
we can't. Oh shit.
Oh, he's confirming that he's your lawyer too. Oh, sorry.
Man, there's that third hidden party controlling both sides of the narrative again.
Oh man, who's Toby really? What's Toby? Wait, how does he spell it? What's the acronym? Toby?
Tolhby.
Oh, Toby.
Toby.
Oh, no, this is Toby. Oh, you're Toby?
Toby
okay,
with a silent L.
Okay, well, we give different insiders then. So we're okay.
Yeah. Well, that's just a little we talked on the because there's that video I made about David Wilcock a few years ago. It's got a lot of views on it, more views at least than I've had on any of my other videos here. And it's funny to see some I don't get tied up in the comments, but then again, there is a part of me that just wants to just make it clear here right now, even though I'm at times I'm critical, and even more critical now than definitely have been in the last 10 years of David Wilcock, and like to poke a little fun here and there, as if looking at him like, John, we've always looked at David as sort of like a older brother.
Yeah.
And and he's got a lot of great information in there. I do believe that. I think his heart's in the right place a lot of the times. I listen to that guy CW Chanter, and he is not. He's way more like against David Wilcock fully. I'm not fully against him, but I just think it's amazing to see that how dedicated people can be. That even if you want to criticize somebody, no matter how much you say you love him, and I'm not trying to make fun of him and belittle him. I don't think either of us are. But then again, it's like, does that mean we can't be critical? We can't question certain aspects of the narrative, which is really what it comes down to, I think, with David. It's certain aspects of the narrative. I think he's got a lot of great puzzle pieces, and he still does, and he's a lot of his information, but it's just certain avenues on how he's telling this story. Agreed. I think are definitely questionable and dangerous to a certain extent.
Yeah, and it's not like as always, it always comes to your intention, and you're not trying to make like a series of video rants where you're trying to bring down David Wilcock. Like your intention is not to completely ruin his life. It's, as you said, brotherly. Like that's how you can't take it all too seriously, especially this wild shit. Especially this wild shit. You can't take it too seriously. That goes with everything in life. But this fucking out there, abstract, alien, deep space, deep state, white hat, fucking conspiracy, you can't take it that seriously, because part of it is it's an enjoyment. It's like you like they say, like conspiracy porn or fear porn or any of these kind of things that you seek it out because it gives you some sort of satisfaction. And you have to remain human about it. And David is such a human. That's why it's fun to go on this journey with him since 2007. And he is like a brother to us. We have had 2 personal experiences with him that were kind of exceptional, that kind of melded us, even though he might not remember them. But like we do see him as a brother. And I remember when after Kobe passed and people were interviewing Shaq, and they're always like, well, you guys had such a topsy-turvy relationship, you know, you'd always be talking shit about each other in the media, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we were brothers. Brothers fight. Like, that's what you do. That's doesn't mean we don't love each other, but you give each other shit and you make sure you call each other out, you know? And we've done that with each other personally, you and I. And David Wilcock is such a public figure at this point. It's like, you know, and you have followed him for 12 or 13 years now. So it like gives you a little bit of a right to at least comment on it, especially when he's like, you're on his forum of like YouTube and being on the internet. It's like, okay, he's saying all these things and I'm, you know, I feel this and feel that. I think you're warranted in being able to have those opinions about him, especially because you're not trying to attack him. Yeah, it's no one wants to hear, you know, negative things about, oh, well, John Allen's been saying this shit. And then all of a sudden he kind of, you know, his ego's getting in the way and it seems like he's changing tunes a little bit. And I've noticed this and I've noticed that, you know, there are a lot of people who kind of take David Wilcock as like probably is, you know, word from the source. You know, he is the source as he was with us. So I think every now and then it's good for him or other people to be like, hey, by the way, he's not the almighty. I've noticed this and noticed that. Not picking him apart, but, you know, he just remember that he is human as I am human and as you are human. And, you know, it's okay for people to do that. And like I said, you didn't have a malicious intent to try to bring down his family and his life and his career. He's going to do what he's going to do, but it's good to make lightheartedness of, you know, these kind of situations. Like you've done that with Uncle Bruce once or twice, and it's obviously you have nothing but love for him, but you know, you should be able to say what you want to say, especially about somebody in this kind of field that's saying the most outrageous, unfounded stuff. Like we just joked about having an insider and suing people. And that's kind of what his whole thing, he hasn't really had much actual evidence. Yeah, he's written 3 or 4 books and given good lectures, but you know, he's had the same slides that other people have had, and he's reading QAnon tweets and like, I don't know. It's how can you not make a little bit of fun of that kind of shit? Like you have to.
Yeah.
In the same way, I'd want him to watch our podcast and talk about us for an hour.
Yeah.
I'd love that. Tear us apart.
I love that. Yeah, pick us apart. I've had people call me, even on the comment section on that particular video, people saying that I'm like, I'm in the cabal. Like, sure, I got a pentagram on my wall, and I'm sure some people will be like, oh my God, he's a Satanist. He's working with the cabal. Yeah. Clearly he's trying to bring disinformation to the public. That is so not the case. David, got nothing but love for you, and really appreciate who you are and what your story represents in this world. I think that's really good. However, the thing that really got me to question him or his narrative, especially with him being such an advocate for the law of one, and I don't claim to be a law of one scholar. He knows obviously way more than I do, so I could be taking things out of context. But just by definition, the law of one being that it's all one, and that we're all part of this energy hologram thing, and it comes down again. One of the main things, it comes down to those 2 paths, right? There's the 2 paths. Yeah. There's service to self and service to others, and it's strongly implied, especially through David's narrative, that, you know, one of these paths is the good path and one of these paths is the bad path. Service to self is the path to evil, and service to others is the path to righteousness. And I have an issue with that particular interpretation. Of course, you can apply that to the red pill, blue pill narrative. You know, on one level, yes, the red pill was the right choice to make in that situation, because that would have been a really short and uneventful movie if he had taken the blue pill. It would have been depressing. So the red pill was the right choice. Service to others is the path that we should be making
choice of in that scenario. At the same time, when you get deeper into that red pill, blue pill mythology, you realize there really wasn't a big difference philosophically between each one. Each one had different effects, but really it was the action of taking. Didn't matter which pill you took, you were still taking a pill. And like the Oracle told Neo, you didn't come here to make the choice, you came here to understand why you made the choice. So there is this dynamic between service to self and service to others, I think, that it started to think got lost in David's narrative, because he's been playing so much into this whole good versus evil, God versus Satan narrative. That to me is I can't get behind that. Like the way I see, like, I'm sure there are nefarious people operating with programming that it's like maybe the people aren't even nefarious. There's nefarious programming. There's malware programming that people will conform to in a field. I'm just not so sure at looking at individuals like the iron filings or the tumor as the real problem in the scenario. Just get rid of the tumor and everything will be fine. Just cut the bad guys. We'll just stop the bad guys. Want the good guys to win. The way I see it is that it's all creation. Everything is just one big hologram of conscious creation, unconditional love and bestowing energy. And it's the programming that we create those. When we live in disharmony, that's when quote unquote evil arises. So I started to really question David's thing, because a lot of what he's been describing and spinning is reinforcing this illusion of separation. There's good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
Like there's like listening to some people talk about, that are really into the Pizzagate, which I don't deny. I've seen Eyes Wide Shut. That shit's like, I trust Stanley Kubrick. If there's one person I trust in this world in terms of a truth provider, it's Stanley Kubrick. So yeah, that shit is definitely real. I'm sure it's real and more real than we care to imagine. But some people really make their life all about that. And I think the QAnon world, the Pizzagate, like all that stuff is so tied together that it's alarming to me to see people still playing that narrative. Like, this is good versus evil. There's the Satanists. There's Satan has been ruling the world for the last however many 100,000 years or whatever. I have a hard time at the very least, just accepting that particular narrative. I think it's like if you want to look at it again, 3-dimensional chess. On one level, yes, service to others is the right choice in terms of service to self. It's all about service to others. That's what the creator's for. It's about bestowing. It's about giving. But then again, that doesn't mean you ignore the service to self path. Because if you look at everything as connected, there is no self separate from the other. I am another you, you are another me. If I don't know how to take care and love myself, then how do I know how to take care and love another?
Yep.
So I think the perfect symbol that demonstrates how this is not just a path this way and a path this way is the DNA double helix, the core of our programming in itself. It's a double helix that the two paths are interweaving like this. And the ladder is formed. We need both in order to climb up that ladder and truly evolve. So to reinforce a narrative of like his ascension idea of the sun will have this massive solar ejection, the big hiccup or burp of the sun or whatever, and then there's going to be the aurora borealis in the sky everywhere, and all the people that have chosen service to others, which all you need to be is 51%. You don't got to be Buddha. You just got to be 51%, which how the fuck can you gauge that? I don't know.
Yeah.
As long as you're 51%, then you're going to ascend and you'll have superpowers and you'll live in the 6th dimension. But then all of the other people, all the people that aren't ready, they will get reincarnated into another planet for another 26,000 year cycle or whatever. It's like the new age equivalent of hell.
Yeah.
It's like you either go to heaven or you go to hell, depending on the choices you've made.
Yeah.
That's an old story with a new spin on it. That's like one of the main reasons that I started to really just question the narrative, the way that David's telling the story. I think he's got a lot of the plot points in there. He's got a lot of the pieces, but sometimes it feels like he's putting those puzzle pieces, trying to force them together when sometimes they don't really fit.
Yeah, I agree. And he kind of has to, at this point, at least to have the full story, to not have any plot hole points or anything like that. So he's kind of like put himself in this position where he kind of has to keep saying this narrative of, good versus bad, light versus dark. But I'm with you. It's even when like the whole, we're the 99%, thing, you were even saying back then, like, what the, no, it's 100%. Like, it's not, it's still, even if it's 99 versus 1, it's still like you're excluding a part of yourself or a part of the community, and then they're the bad guy, and now you're okay because you're the good guy. So we put the bad guy in jail, and then we move on and make sure only the good guys have power. And it's like, it's not fixing, the source of the issue, right? Which we always talk about. Uncle Bruce always talks about, it's like having a painkiller is not healing your broken ankle. It's just telling the pain to stop, telling you that it's in pain. And that doesn't address the thing. You keep walking on it, it's going to keep hurting, and you can take as many pain pills as you want, but it's not going to fix the problem. And it's kind of like we're using the old way of thinking again to try to solve something, to make something new. And if we actually are trying to do something new instead of just a better version of what we've done, which is kind of what it seems like David's kind of pushing. And I have nothing but affection for David either. So I'm not trying to speak ill will of him, but he really is kind of pushing the old narrative to try to create a new narrative, and that doesn't really work for me, at least logically. It's like if you want something new to come about, you can't do it the old way. And saying it's 51 versus 49 and us versus them and Satan versus God, it's like those are the old. Maybe he's withholding a lot more than we think, and he just has to kind of tell the story this way to kind of get people on board and help us understand in a simple way. And then once we get to a different level, it's like, all right, well, it wasn't that simple, but now we've established that base, and now we're here, so we can kind of go into more detail how it's not 51-49. It's like there's a lot more to it. So who knows? We don't know the whole story, like we were saying about everything. No one knows the whole story, but I'm with you that it's too simplified and too black and white, to just say that it's good versus evil again, and we just have to find the bad guys and make sure the good guys get in power. It's like the old saying, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's going to keep happening. I don't care how good of a guy you are. If you're running the world, you might be like, okay, let's divert, $10 billion to make sure my family's okay for, there's going to be corruption, even if it is positively intentional corruption. It's just, it can't, if you want something new and beautiful and wonderful and 6-dimensional, you have to do it differently than the same old way, which is, I think, what you're getting at is that David's kind of saying it's the same old way. We just got to do this, just got to do that, and then we're all good, It's like, that's probably way more complicated than that. But like,
Yeah.
So I just don't know what the way of doing it besides that old way, besides, the classic story of black versus white. Like, I don't know how else would you tell this story, and how else would you say we have to overcome? Would you say we have to convert everybody? We have to talk to everybody. Like, we want to get everyone on the same page. I know he's been very clear about, like, there's not going to be, street justice. There's not going to be hangings in the street. There's not going to be, beheadings. It's going to be very official, and everyone's going to have a court case, and it's going to be, a jury of their actual peers. It's not going to be any shady shit. So he's been very clear about that, but it's like still, so we're just going to put him in jail. We're just going to put tens of thousands of people in jail and lock them up for the rest of their lives, and that's the solution. So I don't know what.
I don't know. And it's like, I don't think we will know. I think this is going to be something that's really going to be happening for a long time, throughout our lifetimes, into the next generation. Yeah. We're going to be seeing a lot of stuff happen in our generation. We already are. By the time we're in our 60s, God willing, it's going to be a completely different world than it is right now. Everything's shifting so much. But this is, even back to the David Wilcock idea about there's like before 2012, on 2012, there's going to be this big event, and it's going to happen. It's going to be a big spontaneous boom, and everything's going to change. Yeah, that could happen. Like and again, just to throw it out there, I like how we started this conversation and just like, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I still David Wilk. Hey, he could be right. I mean, they could be right about more things than we give him credit for, like on a large scale, like on a collective level. So like, we're going to be seeing these things happen, but I imagine that we're just like we had talked about in previous podcasts, is we're looking at things in such a slow motion time perspective right now that it's like if you were to pull back and just look at the first 1,000 years from the year 2000 to 3000, that's going to look, I think that if you were to pull back to a scale where you can see that in like a minute, it would look like exactly what David's talking about. It would look like this big boom, spontaneous shift in things. So it's like waiting for the magic show to happen, looking out, being like, when's it going to happen? I'm not so sure that that's wise or the best way to get back to like, how do we reconcile a new world if it's not going to be black and white, this and that, cause and effect? What's this new world going to look like? I think if you take a step back in our perspective of time, it'll make more sense in that hologram way. And just I found a video here. Actually back in 2012 or 2013, I started watching these Kabbalah revealed videos of this guy explaining the tree of life and the science of the Kabbalah and everything. And one of the aspects in describing this, which it applies to everything, it's the synchronicity key. Like in terms of cause and effect, there are the two things. There's the creator and the creature, and it's all about the hero's journey, starting as the creator and the omnipotent, everything's one, down into the layers of reality where you feel separate, but then that's like the dark night of the soul, right? In the hero's journey, where once you are completely separate, then there is the need to climb back up the ladder, back into the fold of creation so that you're one again. But in the science of Kabbalah, there is they're very, very heavy on the numbers. Numbers mean everything. For every letter in the Torah, it associates with a number. And if you take, this is like where the Bible code kind of comes from a little bit, where if you take certain numbers and you add them together, and knowing, like if you take the number for man and the number for woman, you add them together, you get the was it 2 + 3 = 5, and 5 is the number of life. So it's like there's a code, you can see the numbers how, but there's reason I bring this up is because when you are down at that point of separation and you recognize that there's this ladder that you need to climb to get back up to the level of the creator, there are apparently 600,000 steps on this ladder, meaning there are 600,000, I believe what they're called is mitzvot, or good deeds, that you need to do in order to get to the ladder. God bless you. 600,000 choices that you make, and depending on the choices, they could, it's all about balance and positive and negative. So some choices you make are more leaning this way, some choices are more leaning that way, some choices are more balanced, and you have 600,000 of these choices, and depending on the choices you make, being in more balance or not will affect how quickly you can get back up to the top, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So 600,000, I think, is an important number. I want to bring this up because there was a podcast a number of years ago where David Wilcock and Corey Good, when they were still really doing like cosmic disclosure and everything, they were talking about, I think they're insiders, or Corey Good was talking about the Blue Avians. I don't know which one it was, who told who what, but somebody gave some inside information to David or Corey that the question was, at this point in time right now, let's say in 2016, how many souls on earth are ready to ascend? And apparently the number was something like 300,000. And they were bummed out about it. I remember listening to it. They were like, this is bad. That's like no one. There's 7-8 billion people on the planet. Only 300,000 people, man. I don't know. We might have to do the cycle all over again. The bad guys are trying to stop us. We got to get those numbers up. And I remember, I was like, 300,000. Why does that ring a bell? Oh, I started thinking about the Kabbalah. 300,000 is half of 600,000. these steps on the ladder are synonymous with think of each individual soul on the planet as being one, like a mirror ball, a perfect sphere mirror ball, reflects light perfectly. But what we're dealing with right here is more like a disco ball, where you have a mirror ball, but it's tiny little mirrors all spread around it. They're all separate mirrors, but they're all on one big sphere. So when you shine a light at it, it creates that effect, right?
Yeah.
So the visually, to think about what that 600,000 number looks like from the level of separation, you got to imagine like a disco ball. You've got all these little tiny pieces of mirror, which are like every single person and their perspective. And it's when we all come to, the whole point is to rise up that ladder to unity again, start synthesizing those mirrors. So you don't have 600,000 little pieces. We just have one piece. And that's the life's work that you have to do. Point of this is they were so bummed out about 300,000 being so little. And when I saw that number, I'm like, no, that's literally half of all the souls on earth. It's not 300,000 people. Think about all the doppelgangers in the world. Even David Wilcock told that story about how there was that one guy that had the same birth chart as him. It was very similar, but he was like a weird psychic, like in Black Ops guy or something.
Yeah.
They weren't
the other one who potentially could have been Edgar Casey, right?
Yes.
There's only one other guy who could have been Edgar Casey.
Yes, and that guy there, I'm pretty sure David had said too, like there were a lot of similarities, but it was more like this guy was on the dark side or something like that. At least the way that he said it. So anyway, the point is that there's there's 7-8 billion people on the planet, but does that mean that there's 7-8 billion individual souls, or are there souls that are incarnated into multiple bodies, sort of like lenses, like a light coming through a lens shining through multiple people in different geographic locations, fulfilling the same thing? So point is that I just remember them thinking they were so bummed by looking at that number, 300,000. But hey, that's actually, I saw that, it's like, hey, that's good news. 300,000, that's half. If we're talking about 51% service to others, then like we're right on path here. So I think and of course I could very well be mixing up and screwing up a lot of the facts and statistics here, but I just think the point of this is not all of us have the full story. And if we're operating with a belief system of separation and good versus evil, we're going to be interpreting our environment through that perspective. And it might not be as dire straits as they were projecting in that situation.
Right. Yeah, I'm just looking up the current world population is 7,781,846,355 people.
Yeah. All the accounted for people.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely just seeing things a little bit more positively.
Yeah, I think, it's, again, it's like, do we need to save the world? Do we need to be fighting in a war on consciousness? Or is this all somehow part of some sort of massive transformation in consciousness where we basically we're like, what was the show I was watching? Debs, I think it is. Have you watched that at all yet?
No.
Well, no spoilers, but this idea that we're like our lives are predetermined in some sort of way. We just don't see the tracks of our lives. I don't think things are predetermined in that way, but I'm not so convinced that what we do here is going to affect things on the higher planes at all. I think in a lot of ways we're living in a simulation.
Right, like a sandbox, like they've said before.
Yeah.
You can't fuck up anything outside the sandbox.
So it's like, for the sake of the sandbox, sure, we should be, trying not to let the bullies kick down all the sandcastles that kids are building. But is this some sort of like satanic plan that if we don't, it's like we screwed up and everything goes bad? We end up in a dystopian world?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how we have to think about it sometimes. We have to dramatize things in order to motivate us. I think that's partially why David does it as well. He's obviously he's living off of this. He's selling books. And if he were to say nothing's going to happen for 20 years, people might be like, well, okay, all right, we're just kicking it. But if you're like, next week, next month, it's like, oh shit, I got to stay in tune. I got to watch his YouTube videos. I got to buy his books. So he has an ulterior motive there. But also, like, we have to trick ourselves as humans. We really, really are good at that, personally and collectively. We have to trick ourselves that there's a ticking time bomb. I mean, like the hero's journey, maybe that's not the same in every universe, but maybe that's the hero's journey is our blueprint for the path of a human. And it's dramatic as fuck. It's so dramatic. Do we need to go through all that stuff? Maybe not though. Like we've made the story be this way. We've given ourselves these hurdles, and we've painted these dramatic scenes in order for us to kind of get into it, And I think I needed to trick myself into working and doing stuff a lot. So it wouldn't really surprise me if, as humans, we like made it look more dramatic than it is, just to get us kind of up and moving and make it happen, to say, oh, it's going to happen in 2012, or Y2K is going to happen, or this and that, and just to kind of occasionally have these benchmarks to kind of keep us on our toes. Because if there was no prediction except for, in the year 2025, that's when it's all going to go down. It's like, all right, well, what do we do till then? Nothing. Kick it, farm, watch podcasts, listen to podcasts, make lasagna. Like, there's not really any urgency now.
Yeah, there's no urgency or incentive to do anything.
Yeah, we love the drama.
There was
even if something's not dramatic, we make it dramatic.
Like in Ghostbusters Part 2, in the very beginning of Ghostbusters Part 2, when Venkman, or Bill Murray's character, he's like the host of that show, World of the Psychic, and he brings on those two guests, and they're talking about the end of the world. And the first guest he brings on says that I think it's like February 14th, 2003 or something like that. Some distant date in the future. He's like, Valentine's Day, bummer. Bad day to end the world. But then the next guy he brings on, he's like, I believe the world will end on New Year's Eve this year. And Bill Murray's like, that's cutting it kind of close. I mean, like, what about book sales? I mean, that you sure you don't want to like it's going to happen in 1990 or 1992.
Yeah.
Like, no, the world will end on New Year's Eve, which was a little foreshadowing of what was going to happen in that movie. Uh-huh. But still, it's like, yeah, it's that sense of urgency. Definitely, it's good, and also is bad. It's positive and it's negative. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So it comes down to, we don't know what the fuck. We don't know if we're lying to ourselves. We don't know if somebody else is lying to us, or if it's true. We just won't know until it happens or it doesn't. And then we won't even know if it happens or it doesn't sometimes. It's like, oh, did that happen? I think so. That whole thing that we were all freaking out about, oh, yeah, that did happen. Oh, yeah. Well, then we just moved on.
That happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 9/11 was almost 20 years ago. Get over it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's again.
I'm gonna run the.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Yep.
Segue.
Yo.
Here we are. Was it May 2nd?
May 2nd. Yeah. Wow.
May 2nd, 2020. Machiavelli turns 12 in 23 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Gotta switch the calendar over here. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Time is flying.
Time is flying. But it's not.
Well, it's not. It's not flying at all. Shit. This is the theme of what's going on in this.
Yeah.
It's like it is, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of reminds me of Kitty. She would always say, I am, but I'm not. That was like her little slogan for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she was right.
She was a contradiction in herself. She made no sense. I'm still not sure she was human, but
Yeah, agreed.
What'd you put on there? Altered States? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
Little flotation chamber action.
I still got to do that for sure.
Oh,
This is definitely changing my mind and on things that I've been like a little scared about. Like fuck it now. Jesus Christ, who cares? It feels like we're living to the end of the world, even though I don't believe that's what's happening. But now it's like, shit, I'll do that. Why not?
Oh, it is
I'm not gonna
so
go
good.
crazy. I'm not gonna go do heroin and shit. But there's this
No.
stuff where I'm like, fuck
yeah.
it. At this
You
point,
don't need
like,
to do
yeah.
ayahuasca and go in there. That'll induce a psychedelic experience without anything. I would imagine Joe is very right when he says eating a couple of pot brownies before going into a float tank would be like super intense.
Yeah.
That was a real time machine, man. Going into that, I thought I was in there for maybe like 20 minutes. I was in there for an hour and a half. Crazy. Just got to make sure you close your eyes, though, when you're in there because it's so dark. You have a tendency to open your eyes really wide. And the condensation on the inside of the float tank is just saltwater solution. It's like really intense salt water. And I was just laying there with my eyes open and just bloop, just
drip right in there.
It was trying to get and then getting out of the tank because you're in there, you're naked, and it's all dark. So you like get out of the tank and it's super slippery because of salt. And just coming out of like it was like Altered States coming out of there, like and just slipping around on the floor.
Yeah, I gotta try that. Gotta try that. There's a lot of stuff I gotta try. I still want to. So we haven't really. I feel like we've talked about it a little bit, but obviously the timeline. I don't know if we talked about it specifically, but my timeline for coming out there, it's still up in the air. But I don't want to like reschedule too soon. I don't want to whatever. So I think I told you maybe I'm aiming for February now because that's when your lease is up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can maybe find a place like we originally planned, like getting a place together so that we can move into it at the same time or whatever, however it works. But I'm still down with, I'm going to fly out there beforehand and still down with
open around.
Yeah. And getting an Airbnb and having a little mushroom experience as well, just to kind of re-slate everything. I don't even know, man. Who even knows what it'll be in February. So
mushrooms are the cure to coronavirus.
They're the cure to everything.
They cure to everything. I think that would be really good for right now, like to settle like some of the confusion that's been afoot
in the mist.
A foot in the mist. A foot in the mist.
We're all just a foot in the mist, man.
Just a foot in the mist.
Hey, Mom, love you.
Love you, Mom.
Alex loves you too. A foot in the mist. Is that a person? No, it's just a foot.
Just
in the mist.
In the mist. Like from the Addams Family thing, the hand.
Oh, yeah.
A foot.
We're all just a bunch. Foot, mist, dude.
Oh, Janus. Got it.
Oh yeah, then that fucking movie's coming out. Like, who knows how that's gonna change the world? We're all facing the music right now, and Bill and Ted are gonna be out there.
Oh, that would be such a perfect
celebration
for the end.
That wouldn't surprise me if that was one of the movies that we're just like, all right, I don't know if it's gonna come out when people are allowed to go to the theaters. We'll just have it, and it's just like on Netflix or on whatever. I feel like they'd be the kind of. Obviously, it's up to the production company, but there's still a lot of old fucking Hollywood shit that's fighting this real hard. Like,
oh god,
no streaming. It's like, well, see what happens when you need people to go to a physical theater and this kind of shit happens. You lose you lose everything.
These goddamn Hollywood elite.
Netflix and all these streaming services are probably more profitable now than they've ever been.
Sure.
So clearly, Hollywood's holding on to.
It's fucking itself in the ass right now.
It is, man. It's face fucking itself in the ass.
Face fucking itself in the ass. Oh man. Yeah, and another crazy thing too is that I don't know how far along if they've finished production of it, but they were filming Matrix 4 too.
Oh shit.
So like Bill and Ted 3. What's that?
That's the real conspiracy. They just wanted these movies not to be finished in production. Anything at all costs. These movies cannot be made.
It's literally the script. It's probably the exact script of Bill and Ted 3. We can't. Why have they not made the song to change the world in 30 years? Because they've been trying to stop. Barnhart's been there that guy with the lit up chin and from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey's been there the whole time, just like trying to stop them at every turn. We can't let this movie be made. We can't let the song be heard.
The song will heal the world, man.
Yeah.
We all hear that song, then cured. Everyone's cured.
Like Mandala.
Yeah.
The good Mandala.
The good Mandala. Shit,
man. Yeah.
Yeah, once I've gone back and forth like 10 times on this fucking script I'm writing now, but as soon as I get this draft, I've simplified it so much, so I feel a lot better about it. But yeah, once I get this out of my system and feel good about it, then we got to get right back into that Mandala shit.
Yeah.
We really do.
You've been seeing Brie Larson's Instagram stories?
Yeah.
Or singing and doing guitar and stuff?
She's doing role research.
For Mandala, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to get cracking on that.
Yeah. We're literally in the middle of Mandala, though, right now.
Yeah. I just don't know if there will be a demand for movies related to this traumatic experience that we're going through, or if it'll be like a don't touch any movies that have anything to do with a disease or a virus or something like that. I wonder which way it'll go, you know.
We'll find a producer that'll be into it. Dude, like, what was it? Bush was still president, and they made a movie about Bush. It was like 2 years after 9/11. They were making movies about 9/11. We can, they can Facebook their faces.
Fuck their faces.
We will have a producer.
You're right.
We will have a producer that will totally be into that. Yeah, and it's again back to the thing of some of the deeper conversations with Mandala about who, like, the Barnhart's seems to be your one-dimensional villain, but then there are those scenes where after she goes on her bender and Barnhart's the one that saves her, and there's sort of like, and then in the way that Barnhart and the red card scene happens at the end, it's like, it was all part of some sort of plan. It wasn't like the whole concepts of good and evil really were not, even though are very apparent watching the movie.
Yeah,
you start to see it's not as black and white as that. Even like with her choice that she has to make. Yeah. She has the choice to scream to the masses the truth, but she doesn't. So there's a lot of that blurring of the lines going on, and I think that's super super relevant going into this world right now because people want blood. They don't trust the system. They don't trust their leaders. They don't trust each other in a lot of ways. And is that not part of the plan? Like part of Barnhart's plan to create discord in that kind of way? So how much do we feed into it?
Right. Well, and then that kind of brings it back to what I wanted to talk about with Thanos and either the conspiracy behind that, but I've been researching villains and bad guys and how to write the antithesis to a hero and how they're related and how these big movies are really prone to just having this super one-dimensional bad guy who's just evil. They're just evil. Why they want to do that? Because they're evil. They just want to destroy everything. They want to destroy the universe at all costs, or they want to rule the universe at all costs. And you're like, all right, that's cool. And they look scary and they have a really wild, scary, deep voice. And you're like, whoa, but really it's just like a cape, somebody wearing a cape, or it's not scary because there's no substance to it. And, these videos have said like Thanos is arguably the best villain of all time, or at least of modern times, because he is so relatable. And, people don't hate Thanos. Like when he's on the screen, you're not like, oh, fuck this guy. He's, we're made to feel for him so much. He has to make these tough decisions, but he's just, that's what makes him great, is that he's able to make the decisions that other people couldn't make. And he's in the position of power to make these things happen. But we are taught to sympathize with him so much. And it just, as I was like getting deep down the rabbit hole and late at night with a lot of coffee cups full of wine, it really kind of clicked to me. And I was like, oh, all these conspiracies about Bill Gates and him being, you know, looked at as he's been such a humanitarian, Bill Gates, and he's been investing so much money in vaccines for so long. And I know in the beginning of the 90s, he was a complete asshole. Like there was a lot of shitty, like there wasn't conspiracies. It was like, he's a fucking dick. Like he did a lot of shady shit when he was developing Microsoft, and how he, I think he got sued a bunch for like monopolizing this. And I don't know enough to sound credible, but I know that people didn't like him. And now all of a sudden that he's a billionaire and he's been investing all his monies, and he's, yeah, sure. Here comes the monkey. No, I love you. And it's just kind of funny to me how he's all of a sudden looked at this as this savior, this Bill Gates who's investing all of his billions. And then it's like, well, he's not really investing half of his money because he's getting returns on all this. So he's really making more money. And he's constantly said many times, like he had this TED talk in 2008 or 8 or 9 about the problem of overpopulation. And he didn't present any, that was the weird thing before I even heard most of these conspiracies, is like his TED talk was just presenting the problem. He didn't talk about any solution. He was just like, the world's going to get here. This is where we're going. This is where the world's going, you know? And that's it. Yeah. Thanks for coming out, listen to my TED talk. It's like, yeah, well, what was the point of that? What was the point of that? Except to kind of rouse suspicion and kind of get it in the mainframe of the people that their overpopulation is a problem, when it's like, does anyone think overpopulation is a problem except for the elite? Like we throw away more food. Like if it's a problem of feeding people, we throw away more food than we feed people a year. We've had those statistics around for forever. You know, it's like how much we have enough food to feed everybody 10 times over on the planet. We have enough houses to like how many vacant houses we have from like 2008 or 2009 housing bubble. We have enough housing. We have enough food for everybody to be fed and housed on the entire planet. Yet, and we have all this empty space, yet we're suffering from overpopulation. All this overpopulation. It's like, where is this overpopulation? Except for places like India and Mexico City, where there's just a lot of people in one area. Yeah. Whereas there's these hills and these mountains and maybe some places that you can't move right now, there's still plenty of fucking land for you to move people and have them be fed and have them be housed and have them be clothed. So this idea of overpopulation is such a, like, all of a sudden people are starting to hear about it, like, oh yeah, we really are being overpopulated. Bill Gates is really, you know, tackling this overpopulation problem. He's the only one talking about it. You know, he's in the forefront. He's putting billions of dollars into vaccines. Like, wow, he's really the only one out there. He's really such a good guy. And then all of a sudden fucking Thanos comes, the most sympathetic villain of all time and the biggest blockbuster movie of all time is some guy who's trying to kill half of the universe. Yeah. But you're meant to be like, oh, but poor Thanos. You know, he had to kill his daughter. He had to kill all the people that he cared about. His home world was... His
logic is sort of sound, you know?
Yeah, like... I like the actor, and he just always looks like, oh, I'm doing this, but I don't really want to. I'm sorry, guys. It's just what I have to do. Thanos. Yeah, and then he wins, you know? Yeah. And it's like, well, I guess that's what it is. And he like reaps, he exactly what happens, what he wanted to happen happened. And he's sitting, you know, at the sunset the next day when everybody's gone, half people are gone. And he literally, as he predicted, gets to sit and watch the sunrise and, you know, on a new...
I'm finished.
A new dawn. Exactly. But we hated that guy. And we like, our Thanos is all of a sudden this guy you want to give a hug, even though he just killed... half of everybody. And I just thought that was kind of interesting how all of a sudden the biggest villain in the biggest movie and the biggest franchise of all time is saying the same things that Bill Gates is saying. Yeah. While meanwhile he's investing billions of dollars in vaccines. I don't know. Yeah. It was just very, you know, it was a fun rabbit hole to go down. And I was like, wow, I don't know if we've actually talked about this kind of stuff and how.
No, especially not like in the context of the pandemic with Bill Gates. Yeah, that's well, let's bring back the fact that I think it's the first edict on the Georgia Guidestone says you want to depopulate the planet to no more than 500 million to make it more manageable. Right. So it is like their prime directive number one. I
mean, there's no arguing with that logic. Is if you're trying to control a population, it's easier if there are less of them.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple. Yeah. Pretty simple. The less people there are, the more control you can have.
Yeah, right. And like the United Nations having a governing body that, the bureau, like imagine if if the whole world was like America, where each country was just a state within the world order, and then
Right,
you
right.
have like a governing world order. Yeah, of course, less is better. Um, I was actually talking about this with Uncle Bruce just before we got on the line here, and his whole thing with depopulation looks at it from a biological perspective, obviously, but the idea that uh, overpopulation happens when people are insecure, when there is insecurity, when there's no safety net whatsoever. If you are, don't have to worry about money, you got jobs, and you're living in a good neighborhood, and you have the choice to have kids. Generally speaking, people that are more secure have less children.
Yeah.
But then in places like India, where there is no security, Isabel sees a dog. Hey, it's just a TV dog, Isabel. And then she sees her shadow on the thing, and she'll stare at that for a while.
She's like, oh, yeah, that's a TV dog, but what's that over there?
Yeah.
I can see your shadow too. I can see it.
Yeah, with a little tail wagging. I know, Isabel.
She's not
But
wrong.
yeah, she's beginning to believe. You're beginning to believe. But the overpopulation in places like India, like you said, there is no safety net. There's no. Your survival depends on the more children you have, because when your kids grow up, the more kids you have, when they get jobs, the more money that gets sent back home for the elderly to live. Yeah. Places like here, it's not as great as it could be, or even in Great Britain or around the world, having some sort of safety net for older people, that when you get old, you'll be taken care of. That's not the case in a lot of places in the world. So the more kids you have, more ensures your survival. And plus, like, if things are so scary and dire, and survival is not as guaranteed, if you have like 8 or 9 kids, the likelihood that, at least one of them will make it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of them might die.
Yeah. Well, it's like buying 100 lottery tickets instead of one,
Right. So it's instead of dealing with the population issue, quote unquote issue, by just saying let's eliminate half the population or control to make it more controllable, why don't we just create more secure and safe living conditions where people have more of a quality of life, that there wouldn't be, as biologically speaking, there wouldn't be as big of a need to have to make more people.
Right.
So it's, again, one of those things, like, do we address the issue with a Band-Aid by addressing the symptom, or do we address the underlying issue? And of course, to use the Dark Crystal metaphor, the Skeksis don't understand any of that. Mm-hmm. The Skeksis are all about just like divide and conquer, and doing the same old, it's we are the chosen ones, and then there's everybody else. We are the 1%. They want to maintain that worldview.
Well, right, and they make, through their intentions, they make it clear who they are. Like, the Skeksis aren't trying to make the world a better place. They're not even pretending. They were in the series. They're kind of pretending to be the good overlords, but then at the end, they're just like, who? Remember one of the bad ones is like, what? Who cares if they know now? Like, who cares if they, what do they call the
Gelfling?
Gelfling. It's like, who cares if they know? Like, we're already at the point where it doesn't matter if they know that we're just trying to control them.
Right.
And it's like, if Bill Gates really, really cared and he's worth, tens of billions of dollars, why hasn't he been investing in terraforming deserts? Or why hasn't he been investing in, all this land? Why hasn't he been investing in moving people's housing and in the homeless problem, or feeding people? Like, if he really, really wanted to make the world a better place, he wouldn't just be focusing on the overpopulation problem and vaccines and us needing to decrease our population. It's like, well, no, how about address the issue by making the world a better place here and now, instead of just trying to make the people fit within this shitty world that we have. It's like, well, this is the world and we have to work within it, and that's all we can do. So if this is how everything works, we can only have a finite amount of people, and we have X amount of people over that. So we have to get rid of X amount of people in order for this to be a continually sustainable way of life. It's like, well, so you're invested in this way of life. Obviously, he's made billions of dollars off of this way of life. But if he actually wanted make the world a better place, he wouldn't be focusing on what he's focusing on. He'd be focusing on actually making the world a better place, instead of investing billions of dollars in vaccines only to have the most deadly pandemic ever to hit us. And what have his tens of billions of dollars been doing for the last 20 years? Like, what has he actually been investing in if he can't come up with a vaccine for this, or wasn't able to thwart this? Like, so his main cause has been this. And now the biggest problem in the world is something he's been trying to battle. So he's either on the side of the thing, which happens to benefit him and his cause, or he's really bad at what he's doing because this virus just came out of nowhere and defeated him, which is essentially what he's been battling. So he's either really bad at making vaccines or looking forward and trying to help humanity away from these diseases, or he's letting it happen, making it happen, helping it happen, because he is benefiting from this. He's benefiting from the way that the world is and has been, and he will benefit in the future if it continues this way, and he will benefit more if there are less people.
Yeah.
So all these things in mind, and that he's been so invested in vaccines, and vaccines are viruses, it's just like, it's really easy to make it's a really tiny jump.
Totally.
To go from good intentions to possibly creating viruses that would depopulate the planet. Not saying I believe that. I'm just saying it's really easy. It's kind of apparent in what his intentions are, that it's not to save the people.
Yeah.
No matter what he's actually doing, he's not trying to save the people.
Yeah. It's not outlandish at all. There are certainly some connections that could be made, even with his connection with the gain of function studies and potentially connected to the Wuhan labs. I mean, there are certain things that are, even like we were talking about before, I don't think I finished that point with Joe Rogan having guests on the show that are, I mean, Joe Rogan's show is a good litmus test on what like the common attitude is, I think, in the public. So when Joe Rogan is addressing things like, hey, there is strong possibility that this virus was not manufactured, but studied and amplified in a lab somewhere. That's on Newsweek. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's like a legitimate thing that arguably could be true. And Bill Gates has a lot of connections to it. It's just, he's always been a very shifty individual. He famously stole a lot of stuff from Steve Jobs and Mac, and that's how Windows became Windows. Like Windows was originally in its code, I think, like a program or a software for Mac, but then Bill Gates stole it. So there's a lot of reason to really question what his motives are in this situation. And as a billionaire global elitist person, can't just ignore that. And it's like, he's done other things too. Like there was a documentary series on Netflix, I think it's like In the Mind of Bill Gates or something like that. And one of the projects he worked on for a long time was toilets and sanitation in places that do not have plumbing. One of the things he was working on developing was trying to develop a toilet that does not require the full-on plumbing system of like the infrastructure, everything. Like, how can we build a toilet that could basically just run on its own and just like put it into a place and it'll work? Like those are good things.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are good things. But the scariest thing to me also with the vaccines and what the rollout of this is the precedent that it sets for the government to just inject something into your skin, into your body.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to even know what's in it.
Yeah.
Because the pharmaceutical companies keep a lock and key over what exactly is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. There's probably the vaccine itself, like a weakened form of the virus, but what else is in there?
Well, it's like those bills that they try to pass. It's like, oh, this is a firearms bill, or this is that bill. And it's like, 10% of the bill is about that, and then 90% is all this other bullshit. Like they're sneaking in there. Oh, by the way, this, we can tap your phones, we can look in your car, we're like all this stuff, which is it's just like the MO. So of course, why wouldn't they do that if they could control more? Why wouldn't that? The argument isn't why wouldn't they, because they could, but like they have done that kind of stuff before. And the fact that you're just carte blanche just saying, and then the government has had instances in the past where they've injected stuff into people while lying about it or not telling them what was in there, and there've been people have gotten sick from it. This is not like made up shit. That is the scariest bit about it to me, is that you're just gonna be like, all right, come on, we got the vaccine here, come line up, we're gonna inject you with this thing, and what you're just gonna have to trust what I tell you, and I can't say you what's in it, and we don't really know the long-term effects, but you need it now because you're gonna, for the safety of everybody.
And everyone will get sick. People usually get sick when they get vaccinated because you're getting whatever they're putting the virus into your system.
Yeah,
albeit a weakened version, but it's like that.
We can't trust that. We just can't. Obviously, we have a lot of different reasons for not trusting it, but I just can't. Even if, regardless of the mandala stuff, like I just can't. It doesn't sit right with me just to be like. We've seen too many of these kind of situations where something is caused, then there's a reaction, and then all of a sudden there's a solution, and people are just so willing to be like, yes, put that in my body. It's like, I'm not just going to let you put stuff in my body. Like, I won't even just take a random shot at a bar like, hey, this guy's buying around. It's like, well, what is it? Like, some people are just like, all right, fuck it, free alcohol, I'll take it. And I'm like, no, what the fuck is that? Oh, no, I'll smell it. Like, no, I don't fucking want that shit. I don't care free. I'm not that fucking broke.
Eat schnapps right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to fucking just take it because it's free. It's the same thing with the vaccination. I'm not just going to take it because they say I should take it. We're at that point where you shouldn't just blindly trust somebody to inject something in your body when they haven't been trustworthy on anything else. It's like, who is the source? Who is the source? If this was like your uncle telling me that he made this in a lab and he's going to give me the vaccine, I trust that motherfucker because I trust the source. But this is the government. This is synonymous with lies and deceit and fucking fake ass shit. Yeah. And all of a sudden now I'm just going to let them put something into my body.
And the pharmaceutical companies, they are the least trustworthy fuckers in the world. Right. They patent viruses, our genes, they patent everything. It's like all they see is dollar signs. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting thing that people aren't even talking about the swine flu situation that happened in this. Of course, it's a little different, but then again, the idea of the pharmaceutical companies seeing a bottom line here.
Yeah. When
someone like Nancy Pelosi comes out and says, "Don't worry, we're going to make the vaccine affordable." We already talked about this before on a previous show, but that it's like, why? Is this a public health doctrine, or is there an ulterior motive with this vaccine?
Yeah, right.
Even if it's as simple as someone making money, who the fuck's making money? Why would somebody be making money off of this?
Right. And that tells you everything you need to know right there. If somebody's making money off of a vaccine that you need, then you can't trust them because they have an ulterior motive. You just can't trust them. They're completely immediately off the table, cannot trust them because they have something else in mind.
The numbers as well with the pandemic are just not to say they're fake, but just to say it's like, we don't fucking know. And there's another thing they were talking about on that Joe Rogan podcast was the people that are getting, a lot of people that are dying. Some people will come in, they died of a heart attack, but they also will determine that at some point they had contracted COVID or were around someone that had COVID. The doctors are encouraged to just say they died of COVID, even though they died of heart attacks. Because if you look at what Uncle Bruce said, even if you look at the numbers, heart attack deaths have gone down, cancer deaths have gone down, COVID deaths have gone up. Are those deaths really, is like suddenly people not dying of all the things they've been dying of previously? Or are they just saying, oh, well, they had COVID when they died of a heart attack, so let's just say they died of COVID, add it to the death count?
Yeah.
Because then again, the doctors in a lot of these places, not to put down doctors like they're some sort of money grubbing people, but think about their business. The more COVID deaths and more COVID cases that come into a particular facility means they get more government funding.
Yeah.
because there's such a pandemic, and like the places that are dealing with COVID need to get more money. So the more if somebody died of a heart attack and they also had COVID, we're going to say they died of COVID so that we could potentially have more money to fight off the pandemic. So the numbers are screwed up. And then the biggest number that is understated right now is the recovery rate. The recovery rate is huge compared to the death rate. Not to minimize the death rate. Definitely alarming. However, it's like, is a vaccine, a worldwide mandatory vaccine, going to stop this?
Yeah, especially if it's like, if it happens in like a year, you know, when it's already trying to push it, even when, you know, 50% of the population has had it. It's like if this many people have had it, I could see them still being like, no, we still need the vaccine. We still really need it. It's like, I don't know. I mean, what I would like to see, since you brought that up, is like the average numbers of people dying a day or a month. Like, is that different? You know, if it has gone up, like the roughly the same amount of deaths that there are of COVID, then okay, I would attribute that to COVID. But if there's roughly the same amount of people dying that there would be normally, they just happen to be dying with COVID. It's like the people who die of pneumonia. It's like, you know, my grandpa died of pneumonia technically, but he didn't die of pneumonia. He died because of a bunch of other shit that his immune system broke down, and then he got pneumonia and he couldn't fight it off. And that's ultimately what killed him. But they wouldn't say that's how he died, you know?
Right.
Like a lot of people get shot and you're on the battlefield and you're sitting there and you're bleeding out and you end up dying of pneumonia. You didn't die of pneumonia, you died because you got shot. But you could say he died of pneumonia, or you could say he had COVID. I don't know anything about that, but it's unfortunate that doctors would even be put in those situations. And we're not even saying that they have ill intentions, but yeah, if they're trying to get more money and more resources, of course they're going to say, after the person's dead, they're going to treat them. They're not going to like treat them differently and treat them poorly and let them die. We're not saying that at all, but they have an ulterior motive to say like, well, we did everything we could with this guy, but if we do say he had COVID, it bumps our COVID numbers up, and therefore we're going to have more resources and blah, 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 blah. And it just sucks that there are other things for people to think about like that instead of just saving people.
And Trump is, and again, like there's the whole political maneuvering, jockeying for power going on. Again, using this as another reason to exploit the situation. Trump is such a bad person. Look at him. He wants to tell everyone to inject Clorox into their dick to protect themselves from the vaccine. Like, clearly we needed a better leadership. Yeah, sure, Joe Biden's got baggage. Sure, the Me Too movement is all bullshit now because of him, but forget all that. He will be better because he will push forward the vaccines, which is what we need. We need that. Trump just wants us to do Clorox. Joe Biden will get the vaccines.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit. Like, there's, like, I don't know. Did you ever get flu shots? Like, I haven't.
I think when my parents were in control of what happened to my body, you know, when I was up until 10, 11, 12, whatever age that was. But since then, no.
Me neither. I have not gotten flu shots. I was talking to Mayor, and I think, like, maybe not since the pandemic, but in the last couple of years, you know, he's like, I've been being proactive. I get my flu shot every year. Like, yeah, like, do we need that though? Like, I mean, I don't know. I haven't had a flu shot since like being a little kid as well. And I've been sick before, but the idea that, like, even I think it was really after the swine flu thing in 2009, where you start to see every grocery store with the banner outside, we get flu shots here. Come on in while you're getting groceries, get your flu shot.
Yeah.
Do we need that? Do we absolutely need that?
I mean, it's tough because you and I don't get sick. Typically, like, just don't get sick. Compared to the people that I know that call into work and that blah, 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 I still have a lot of bad habits, but I don't get sick. I get alcohol sick, but that's, you know, half of a day or a day. And I know why that happened. A vaccine wouldn't fucking prevent that. It would just, less tequila would prevent that. But I know that my mom has said that I think in the last couple of years, she's gotten her flu shot and really does feel like it has, because she's a teacher and she works with 10, 8, 9, 10-year-olds who are just full of fucking germs.
Yeah.
So teachers just get sick. They just get sick.
Yeah.
And she said she's gotten a lot less sick
Yeah.
The last couple of years since she's gotten the flu shot. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I don't
so
know.
yeah, it's not a blanket term thing either way. Like, it's not going to necessarily be the cure, but it's also not necessarily like, in a lot of ways, it can be very helpful. So
Yeah, I mean, with smallpox, that was incredible. Like, that changed the course of history is the smallpox vaccine, you know?
yeah, and polio. And that's, again, goes back to this idea, like, sure, make vaccines, make them available. And if you want to get them, you can get them.
Yeah.
Just to force them on people in a way like this, especially when people, like with the pandemic now, it's like, we don't have one, but give us 18 months and we'll have a vaccine. It's like, yeah, but there's going to be testing. It's different when you're under stress, like pressure. We got to get this now. All right, we got it here. Take it quick.
Yeah. Right.
Sure. Okay. Like, in that circumstance, like, how's the testing? We don't know the full effects of that.
Yeah. And everybody's so different at this point. That's why it should be like, but yeah, it's tough when when something is so contagious. It's like, well, you're putting other people at risk. Therefore you need to have this vaccine because, you know.
And it won't be the government that enforces that. It will be everybody. It'll be all the average people. It's like, think of in the Matrix, anybody could be Mr. Smith. Anybody could be an agent. Anybody just all of a sudden, like, you didn't get your vaccine? I can't hang out with you. And it'll I think it'll put a lot of, like, people that voted for Donald Trump really that whole thing challenged a lot of relationships with people.
Yeah.
But I think the whole vaccine is going to take that to a whole nother level, where it's like, if you do or do not get the vaccine, that's going to affect the way that people relate to each other. People that have been friends. Oh, wait, you didn't get the vaccine? Well, you can't come over to my house.
Well, right. I'm just thinking about that. People like with Al, who's got a 6-month-old kid, you know,
Yeah.
if it was this intense, his wife would be like, no, he absolutely cannot come over.
Right.
No.
That's.
Yeah, I get that though. You know, you have to understand it from their perspective. But you're right. It will change the dynamic of a lot of things, and you know, you will be labeled as something. Who knows if you'll have to fucking wear like a scarlet letter, fucking walking around town.
Where you'll have your little microchip that'll just, you won't be able to go on. You won't be able to fly. You won't be able to go, have access to whatever. Like, that's all happening. Yeah. It's just it's to try to bring it back somehow to some sort of positive note. I don't know. We got to have that solidarity. We got to have that consciousness, not to take sides necessarily of, whether you're pro conspiracy, pro the Thanos, Bill Gates narrative, or just pro like the Fauci narrative, or like the Joe Biden narrative or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not even about taking sides as much as it's about just trying to resonate a sense of calm, and it's easier said than done, of course, but I think that's going to be the most important thing, is to somehow each person needs to find that truth within themselves more than ever now.
And be open. I think the communication needs to be, don't have to agree, but like you were saying before about pointing fingers, and even my dad the other day was just like, this government, all they do is point fingers at each other, and nothing gets done. And even if they were to sit down and talk and then didn't get anything accomplished after that would still be an accomplishment, just to get them to be actually listening to each other instead of just yelling and throwing their poop at each other. It's like, that's kind of how it needs to be. It's been so polarized with Trump, recently, before it kind of gradually escalating with Bush, and then with Trump, it was kind of like, oh, you're a Trumper or you're not. It's like, then it's like you're enemies, even if you don't know people. Like I told you about how people treated people when they had a Trump rally here, just screaming at people, screaming at the Trump supporters who weren't doing anything. It's like that is not a way to live in a society and be productive. Like, I think that is the core of what needs to happen, is like, don't need to agree. You don't even need to like say that you're going to be open to something, but the idea of having an actual conversation where one person is listening to another person and there's an actual constructive back and forth, and you open up a little bit to be like, okay, I hear the argument for the first time, instead of just reading what you want to read and getting more upset by like, oh, Trumpers think this and Trumpers think that, and just getting mad about it instead of talking to somebody who actually, and understanding why they believe what they believe, and then they hear you and where you're coming from and why you believe what you believe. Most of the time, nothing will come positive of that, but the fact of that sit down really needs to happen on a smaller level, and then obviously on a governmental level. But I think calm will come from that once we realize, you know, we've come to two different conclusions, but we're very similar in the way that we got there, you know, and we're all in the same boat. We're trying to pick the right team, but there is no right team. I think that's also a big lesson now, is like, there is no right team. You got your guy or your girl, and I got my girl and you my guy. It's like, everybody's wrong right now. So we shouldn't be that upset with each other because I'm wearing a blue handkerchief and you're wearing a red handkerchief. This isn't the fucking hood, and we're not in gangs right now. Like, we can sit and talk, and we can have parlays. We could talk it out and at least just have a moment of fucking humanity and just calm down and show that we're more evolved than fucking chimpanzees, because right now we're not showing that at all.
Not at all.
And just literally having conversations with somebody that you disagree with is the starting point. And we can't even fucking do that at this point.
Yeah.
So many people won't even give people the time of day.
Yeah. Being precautious and being sensitive to the situation, to the frightened groups of people and individuals around the world, that's absolutely imperative right now, especially if we're going to begin to have those conversations. We need to be sensitive to what people's feelings are and the situation. I mean, it's a serious situation that's going to have long-lasting effects with this pandemic. And at the same time, we should be mindful about the patterns in history when situations happen, when we are in fear, how slippery of a slope that can be, i.e. the Patriot Act after 9/11. It's like, we wanted that.
Yeah.
We wanted it. We demanded it because we wanted to feel safer. The paranoia was so great that we needed something, that we demanded something, and one of those bills came in. Yeah, we'll make you safe, but in the process, we authorized the eradication of our privacy. That type of behavior is not over. So yes, we should be sensitive. We should be careful and conscious and open to what people are going through. At the same time, we should have some sort of hold space for like that reminder. Hey, I'm all about taking the precautions, and yes, we should be careful. However, when it comes down to this whole idea of where this is heading, mandatory vaccinations, this is what I've been saying since the beginning. Like, this is where it's heading. This is the solution in the problem reaction solution situation right now. And that is something that we need to be very questioning of. Mm-hmm. Not to the point of like, well, like to take a team and like, oh, Bill Gates tried to murder us all, I'm not taking the vaccine. It's like, we should just be like, hey, let's ask ourselves, is this the best possible thing? Just because we're in fear and we're paranoid about this thing, is that the solution?
Yeah.
Or is this some sort of agenda that's being put into place with a lot of other things that are going on right now? How many times are we going to continue being afraid and making decisions without our higher intelligence going on? So it's like to take that stance. I think in terms of conspiracies, without even having to get into conspiracies, that is not a conspiracy. 9/11 was not 9/11 was an event. People were afraid. Patriot Act came in, seemed like a solution, and now we're looking back on it. It's like one of the most fucked up things that we've done as a country.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of shit can happen again, and it looks like it's going to happen again. So
this is way more personal.
Way more personal.
Yeah.
Injecting into your arm.
Yeah, so it's everybody's life. Like, yeah, you lived in New York State when it happened, and I was a formidable age when 9/11 happened, but it was still a very for 99% of the people in America, you're disconnected from it, you know, except for the fact that you saw the horrible images and you felt for your people. And but this is like, this could affect your family directly no matter where you are. Like you could be living in the tip of Florida or the tip of Maine or the bottom of California or in, you know, in Washington state, and it would affect, it could affect you. Like there's no, like, it's not centralized. It's everywhere. So that adds to the fear and to the hysteria. Like it could get me, you know, it's the invisible boogeyman or whatever Trump calls it, the invisible bad guy.
Enemy.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It's the worst enemy, but it's the best friend to someone trying to do nefarious things, because it's a fear everywhere. It's like what they tried to get the terrorists, you know, when the end of the Bush administration, they kept trying to promote like, oh, there's going to be another terrorist attack. Every day they kept predicting, 90 days,
Code
30
red,
days.
code red.
We got new intel that they're going to attack possibly Ohio, Chicago, Texas. Like they kept trying to make it seem like it could happen to you. And then that kind of wore off, you know, with Obama. I was like, well, no, that's not really true. You know, yes, we get reports in every day, but most of them aren't going to happen.
Do we need to be on that type of alert? That's like we don't, Robin Williams did that stand-up. He's like, we don't know where, we don't know when, but something terrible is going to happen. It's like, what am I going to do with that information?
And
Just be afraid of what?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just be afraid. It's coming.
And that's what this is. It's coming. It's coming to a neighborhood, coming to a theater near you right now is COVID. And unless you get the vaccine, it's the only defense. Or if you hibernate in your house for a long time, but you need to make money at some point. So people need to come out of their houses. And if you want to come out of your house and you want to keep your job and you want to keep this way of life, then guess what? You need a vaccine.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't surprise me if like big corporations were like, you can't work for us.
Oh yeah.
Unless you get it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's already like that with the medical world. My mom, in order to work there, she has to get all the vaccines. That
makes more sense than like, I'm talking about like Walmart or like.
Oh yeah. But it's like, if just imagine, like you're saying, like imagine that mentality rippled out to all of the like CVS or fucking Spencer's Gifts. You can't work at Spencer's Gifts unless you get the fucking vaccine. Did you get vaccine? Sorry, we can't hire you.
Yeah.
That could happen.
I agree. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And where would that put us, Alex? Where would that put you and I? You know,
in a very sticky situation.
Very sticky.
Like we had said at some other point previously that in 2007, 2008, we would have said wholeheartedly, I'm not getting that vaccine. No questions asked, just not doing it. But now that it's actually happening and all these years later with the way we think about things, it's not as easy as just saying, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's much more of a real life situation and just goes to show that what happens when you get large numbers of people all attuned to the same idea, how much more that makes it real than if just like you and I having our own thoughts about a particular virus or vaccine or whatever. So it's going to be challenging time. I mean, challenging situation, but then again, we're still in the middle of it. It's like Michael Scala asking us about our experience as we're having it. Like, hey, we're still having it right now. I can't give you a full report at this moment just because I'm on the roller coaster. But when we get off.
How about this virus quarantine? What do you think, man? I don't know. It's pretty wild, right? It's pretty wild. Right?
Yeah. It's like,
I don't know, Mike.
How does it feel to you?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I really don't know. And it's like as the days go on, it's more and more like I don't know. Definitely on the full peak of the peak. We're peaking on this pandemic psychedelic cultural experience here.
Yeah, the peak of not knowing is right now.
Yeah,
I think that's probably for the best. You know, I like to think this is a preamble to something. You know, that the chaos. You know, chaos is a ladder. It really, it fertilizes every possible situation right now. Like I was saying before, anything could come out of this, which is exciting. Like a new financial system could come out of this, a new government, a better or worse government, new, just new healthcare system, new everything could come out of this, or a new fascist dictator could come out of this, a new World War III could come out of this. Like literally, this is the beginning of every situation ever is right now.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the movie. It's before the inciting, like this is the inciting incident, but it's not even the inciting incident. This is like the laying the groundwork for the inciting incident, which is going to happen, already happened, happening right now. I'm not really sure, but it's literally all right there. Like everything's laid out perfectly for the bad guys and the good guys.
Yeah.
Or the gray guys, or the blue guys.
Yeah, the blue
Or
gals.
the dogs, or the ants, or the bees.
All the ants.
Whoever wants to take the lead right now, it's ready for you.
Yeah, and especially after last night, drinking with my dad and thinking about all this stuff, like the thought like literally crossed my mind. It was like, am I that person who's in denial right now, that like I'm just because of my belief system about Donald Trump and I don't like him, and I certainly think he's a danger to society, a danger to consciousness in a lot of ways. But I got to a point where like shit, maybe he's all right about everything. Maybe Donald Trump is actually working with the alliance. Like all the things I was like, no, David, that can't be right. Last night I was like, fuck, maybe it is all real. I don't fucking know. Yeah. Like, Dad, maybe Donald Trump was right. He's like, no, definitely not. It's just like funny that like the tables have turned where like it was like that's how it felt momentarily last night. It was like when my dad voted for Trump and I was like, no. And now my dad is fucking anti-Trump more than anybody else I know. And I was sitting there thinking like, maybe Trump is actually doing the right thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I think my solution to that, the way I'm looking at it is I'm going to maintain on my between us wizards, we could talk about this freely, but like to the average person going out into the matrix, in my personal deeper core, I'm going to maintain this idea that it's all real. It's all probably, maybe it's not exactly the ways we think it is, but it's all real. Yeah, all this stuff is going on and nothing is what it seems. Yeah. But I'm not going to go out there like on a crusade like a lot of these other people are, just going out there, make it my job and mission to tell people the truth. Because fundamentally, we don't know the truth. I don't know the truth.
You know who does?
Toby.
Well, Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
We should get our Ron Paul signs back out. Who is Ron Paul?
Yeah, who's Ron Paul? The beginning is near. Yeah, we should go back out there, hold Ron Paul signs out. Who's Ron Paul? Be like,
got to go back to Ralph's, man. We got to talk to that FBI agent sitting in the car.
Dude, that's right. Oh, we were totally fucking being lurked upon.
These fucking Ron Paul people. Nobody would see us coming now, would they?
No, I'd be like, fuck, who is Ron Paul? Shit.
You mean Rand Paul? No, not Rand Paul.
No, not Ron
Paul.
Ron Paul.
The OG.
Yeah.
Remember when he went on Bill, what's his name show?
Bill Maher.
Remember, didn't everybody love Ron Paul and Bill Maher, right?
Yeah.
He loved him.
He made the most sense at that time.
They loved him.
Yeah, he was the one Republican who was saying things that were not full-on Republican talking points.
I still wouldn't be surprised if there was some dark horse in this race. Not saying it's going to be Ron Paul, but this presidential race, it wouldn't surprise me if someone just came out of left field.
He's like, I'm here.
I'm here, by the way.
Yeah,
because it looks like they're going after Biden.
Oh God, big time.
And obviously, it never stops with Trump. So either side is trying to chop down the other one more aggressively than ever. I think will possibly open up, because no one's excited about either one of them. I mean, there's a group of people that are excited about Trump, but no one's really excited about Biden. And even the Republicans who are just Republican are not excited about Trump. So I feel like there is a little wiggle room for somebody just to kind of squeeze in there. The timing is right, and more sexual assault cases come up with Joe Biden, which nobody would be surprised if they did.
And they are. That is one of the most frustrating things, man, to watch that happen, to see how the Democratic Party leadership is just, and not even just them, like everybody that's anti-Trump, really, they're just like ignore all the things a couple of years ago with or last year or 2 years ago with the Me Too movement. All that's out the window now.
Yeah.
It's like all the things like Melissa Milano, the one that pretty much started the Me Too movement. She's now spinning her narrative, being like, well, yeah, sure, Joe Biden's got accusers, but we need to do some more validating and, we need to vet these people. It's like, we never asked you to vet your story. Or when the Brett Kavanaugh was hearing on, we didn't ask to vet her story. She was coming out saying she was accuser, and we were just expected to believe her because believe women. Yeah. But now that there are women coming out against Joe Biden, it's like, oh, well, that's different because it's Joe Biden. We can't. Joe Biden's, yeah, sure, he's got accusations, but those are just accusations. We don't really know. Trump is the real problem here. So just to see that hypocrisy is really frustrating. Which, like you're saying, it'd be a perfect opportunity for somebody else to come in and if only Michael Bloomberg was not such a boring just version of Joe Biden, basically. if there was a billionaire like Bruce Wayne came in and wanted to actually do some good shit.
Oh, hey, dude, there is a billionaire out there who's very interested in what's going on right now. His name's Bill.
Oh, Bill. Oh, Bill maybe Bill should run.
Oh, I didn't really ever think about it, but now that you say it,
he is thinking about vaccines. Vaccines are good.
I wouldn't really, I've never really associated with the party, but
now,
I'll run it by my wife, and we'll see. Oh, turns out I had a whole campaign planned already. Here's my commercials. You remember me, Bill Gates, Microsoft guy. I'm just a little nerd,
The nerd.
Oh, for
Wouldn't
me.
you rather have a smart nerd than a clown? The game show host?
Come on, guys.
When have nerds ever done anything wrong?
I'd be the smartest president ever. Cool, man.
Oh, my God.
What a world, man. What a world. I can't wait till somebody makes a movie about Earth. It'd be a great show.
Yeah. But that's, like with having that open-minded conspiracy idea that like us and our initiated friends can talk about, all this stuff. But with the way, hold on one second. Here. So like the idea is that like having that base level openness to the conspiracy, I think is really important, but I'm going to be especially mindful now in having a public face and how I talk about it in the public. The challenge will be how to somehow not make those schizophrenic ideas. Like, I don't want the public face to be a complete lying act, being like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Trump. Yeah, the Fauci. Yeah, Fauci's good. And then in secret be like, yeah, but fucking Fauci.
Yeah.
So there's got to be like the challenge here, I think, going forward is going to be to somehow reserve that thing. Like Morpheus even told Neo, he's like, generally we don't wake people up when they get to this age because it'll danger of breaking their mind. You have to reach them at a level when they're open and susceptible. So it's like going into the Matrix. You can't just like show up to someone in the Matrix, just manifest and be like, it's all fake. Here, take this pill and we'll wake up together. It's like, whoa, where the fuck? You just showed up out of nowhere. Like, there's got to be.
We've both tried that before.
Oh yeah, that's like, I feel like that was who was Ron Paul the beginning of his near days, especially.
Yeah. Well, I think the easiest way to have like a public perspective and a private perspective is just to say less in public. People don't. Everyone's trying to talk anyways. It's really easy to not say anything and be unnoticed. I know that you're a bit more of a talker and a storyteller, so you're more animated and you're kind of maybe more expected to chime in a lot more. So the absence of that might be like, well, what's going on with Alex? You okay? Why are you not saying anything?
Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's under control.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to like.
I'm calm.
You are. Calm. You don't have to like perpetuate a completely different, perspective on stuff when you're out there, just to kind of. But clearly, Bruce, Bruce is not a liar, but he wouldn't say things. He talks to his brother, your dad, differently than he talks to,
Right.
his, as everybody does. Everybody has a personal and in a community, like my mom's a teacher. She's in the community. She wouldn't, she says stuff at the dinner table she wouldn't say to her, the parents of her kids. It's just the same kind of thing. She's not being dishonest. She's just withholding. So, at this point, when everybody is so gung-ho to talk about it, it's okay to get, it's easier than ever, I think, to get lost if you don't really want to exhibit a conclusion or a perspective. It's really easy just to kind of be like, step back for a second and let it, and then if it comes to you, it's like, oh, just to be like that. Because somebody, like, just based on my last two video chats with my high school buddies, I barely said anything in all of those, and it's not like they were heavy political talks, but like, it's just really easy to not say anything. I think it's easier than most people think, and especially at this time, there's more of a benefit to taking things in than to projecting. It's really easy just to absorb right now because there's so much to absorb. And it would be like, if you were to talk, it would be like you'd be like La Scala in the middle of an ecstasy trip, talking about the trip before it's over. And you're an unqualified, you don't have all the data, so you can't really conclude on anything. And that's where we're perpetually at right now. It's like, I don't have all the information to speak on that.
Right.
And it's tough to bite your tongue sometimes because you really want to talk about this stuff. So some of it's so exciting to talk about, obviously, because we love talking about it, you and I in particular, with each other. But I think the best thing to do right now is just kind of take everything in and bite your tongue as much as you possibly can, especially about stuff that will possibly set other people off. You can't say the wrong thing, and even your best friends might be like, "What? Seriously?" And you have to be like, I'm not trying to do that. I just don't know. I just don't know. That's all. But most people won't say that they don't know. They don't have all the information.
Right.
And I think that's the best thing that we could do at this point, when we've clearly admitted to each other and ourselves, we don't know what the fuck to think. So in public, if people ask you about it, or somebody you don't really want to get deeply into it, the uninitiated, like, I'm not really sure. I haven't really figured that out yet. I have my thoughts, but it would be unwise of me as a wizard to speak on this subject. In the moment.
And it's like, well, and that's again back to the whole choosing sides thing. That people are demanding to choose a side on all sorts of stuff like that. Yes. So that's sort of what I mean with because you're right. Like that's, as a general rule, that's a good attitude and approach to the whole thing, is like, just really listen. Don't have to get into it. Can really rest on the laurel of I don't know. No comment on that. And at the same time, though, recognizing, even to suggest no comment, there's still that, like, but like, you have to, like, I mean, of course you're not trying to say like you want the virus to spread, you want to flatten the curve, right? It's like, well, yeah, sure. Like I want to flatten the curve. There's got to be a way to communicate it in those situations that it does come up.
True, yeah.
To not even necessarily subvert your deeper understanding into the conversation, like codify it in some way, but to how to communicate things that reach the same conclusion of I don't know. It's really hard to say. It's just, there's something about the whole nature of how we communicate about this stuff, and in a way that brings truth to light, as well as disarms the growing militia of our differing opinions.
Yep. Well said. I don't know what else to add. I don't know. I'm not qualified to expand upon what you just said.
As your wizard, I am not qualified to comment on that.
My lawyer is telling me, Toby is telling me right now.
Yeah, my lawyer insider, Toby. He's my insider. He tells me what's up.
He's recommending that I plead the fifth right now. Well, sweet, man. I think that's a good place to end because I don't know where
Yeah.
else we go. I just don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like we started in the same place we ended.
And I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know where we are, where we went, where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. Again, the best thing is the hologram. Recognize the hologram. Recognize the nature of time, that we are time, and that we already did it. We're enlightened enough. We don't have to change. We don't have to save the world or change the world. We just gotta change ourselves. Got to change our perceptions. We're gonna see the best of times. We're gonna see the worst of times. It's all in the way that we perceive it is really what's going to make the biggest impact in all of this stuff. So,
Agreed, man. Agreed.
Yeah. Well, great times as always.
Yeah, man. Good talk. Good stuff. Yeah, I don't know what we accomplished, if we accomplished anything.
Shout out to David Wilcock. We
Shout out
love
to
you.
David Wilcott. We love you, buddy. Nothing but love for you.
Don't be mad or if we question some of the things you're saying. It's not even that we doubt it.
We don't doubt it.
Really, you're probably more right about things than we care to imagine at this point.
Yeah. True.
Just remember, don't say you have 180 IQ if you can't remember the Georgia Guidestones line 1. It's 500 million, not 250 million. 180 IQ. You should remember that.
David.
But we love you. Don't worry. I'm not
We
with the
love
cabal. Don't mind the pentagram and the dream catchers. I'm totally not in the cabal. Okay.
Don't mind our hoods. We just like hoods.
Yeah, we just like our hoods.
Not in a secret society. Or are we?
Come here, Thor. Come here. Puppy. Come here. Come here. Jump. Jump.
Come here, Thor. 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 Hey, Thor. Oh,
Right there. Look, he's right there.
It's Abigail. It's Abigail. Look, it's Abigail.
Hello. Good dog.
Let me see if Isabel's here. Come here, Isabel.
You see Isabel? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Do you see her, Isabel? Look.
You see the shadows?
See the doggy? See the doggy?
Isabel. No.
Look, Isabel.
Hi. Isabel. Hi. Was he dog? Dog
She
here?
sees her.
Oh.
See her, Isabel? Look right there. See the doggy?
It's probably hard to see.
Oh, she sees her. Hey, look right there. Okay, Isabel. All right, man. Well, I'll get this podcast downloaded here. I'll upload it. We'll see what happens. We got our dedicated 20 to 30
Cool,
people
man.
that like to watch it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, all you people, or one person watching it 40 times. Appreciate it.
Good times. Well, love to your family. Let's do this again real soon. Maybe let's see if we learn. Let's see if we know anything next time.
Yeah, we'll check in. Any updates? Probably not.
Yeah, probably
Love that,
not.
buddy. Good talking
All right,
to you.
dude.
Love
Good
you.
talking to you, man. I'll see you
Peace
later.
out. Yeah, see you later. Peace out. Peace.
Pizza.
Pizza.
Pizza.